Chapter 410. Mu Shui. Do you still remember the time before Baihua Palace was established, when we had no one to rely on? Yan Bugui loudly shouted. Hearing that, Baihua Fairy stopped again, but this time, she didn't turn around. Seeing that she had stopped, Yan Bugui said in a loud and emotional voice. Back then, it wasn't easy for you and I to be together, and we faced so much resistance. Although we were ridiculed and scolded, we still persevered. Before Baihua Palace was established, did the 10,000 demons or Fuxian Island care for us? No. No one cared if we lived or died. It wasn't until you and I worked so hard to establish this Baihua Palace that we managed to gain a foothold in the cultivation world. How could outsiders understand the hardships we went through? Baihua Fairy didn't move, she didn't leave, nor did she turn around. Perhaps she was also thinking about the hard times back then. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wu Yuan exchanged glances. Both of them knew about it. Back then, Fuxian Island and 10,000 demons were pressured by both the righteous and evil path. Even their sect masters Guanding Hai and Yan Wu Chen had to take the blame and step down, so who would care about them when they were in a fit of anger? For a very long time, they really didn't lend a helping hand to the two of them, leaving them to fend for themselves. It wasn't until Baihua Palace became the trading hub of China's cultivation world that the two great sects secretly re-established their relationship with it. Then again, if the two of them didn't have the backing of the number one sect in the righteous and evil path, it would have been even more difficult for them to establish their own sects in the cultivation world. Back then, I told you that one day, I won't let anyone look down on you anymore. Perhaps you think it was only in the heat of the moment that I uttered those words. But I took it as a vow, and I've always been fighting for it. Thus, I've been working hard in secret for 100 years, but who knew that it would be destroyed by that fellow Yu Qianqiu? Otherwise, the vow I made would just be around the corner. Hearing him mention Yu Qianqiu, Ziyi looked at Yu Qianqiu curiously. She had never heard of this. She didn't know what Yu Qianqiu had done to destroy the plan that Yu Qianqiu had painstakingly worked on for 100 years. She saw Yu Qianqiu's mouth split open, looking like he was in great pain as he smiled at her. His smile was very ugly. On the other side, the Enchantress of 100 Charms was silently poking his waist with a finger. Yen, why are you dragging me into the matter between you and your wife? Your wife and I didn't cheat on you. Yu Qianqiu gritted his teeth and endured the pain. The Enchantress of 100 Charms had a bad habit. She liked to poke people with her fingers at the slightest provocation. One day, he would let her have a taste of her pain. Everything I've done is for you. Don't tell me I'm not worthy of your forgiveness? Yan Bugui extended his hand and said, Mu Shui, come with me. If it was really for me, you should have told me earlier. You wouldn't have kept it a secret for 100 years. Baihua Fairy didn't turn around and continued walking. Don't you know me? I've given up everything to be with you. I've never disagreed with any of your decisions. After I found out, I would only support you and not drag you down. Yet you kept it a secret from me. Clearly, you've always been on guard against me. I didn't want to make you worry. I didn't want you to work too hard, Yan Bugui loudly explained. We both understand each other. Whether or not it's an excuse, you should understand. There's no need to explain anything else. Just take your people and leave. I don't want to see you again. Baihua Fairy still didn't turn around. Yan Zixia followed on the side, silently obeying her. Occasionally, she would look back. On one side was her father, and on the other side was her mother. What else could she do? The brocade-robed old man and the linen-robed old man exchanged glances and nodded. The former sent his voice to Yan Bugui. Palace Master Yan, your madam has already made up her mind. I think it would be better if we forcefully kidnap the mother and daughter back to Everlasting Island. The daughter is mother's flesh and blood. It would be better if the young palace master comes out to persuade them. Otherwise, they'll eventually become hostages in the hands of the Cultivation Alliance. At that point, we'll be stuck. Yan Bugui sent his voice back. That's not a good idea. She has a strong personality. I'm afraid that she'll do something that she won't be able to regret. Palace Master Yan, if you can't make a decision, you have to make a decision quickly. How about this? As long as you agree, my junior brother and I will act together to guarantee that we'll kidnap the mother and daughter, not giving them a chance to harm themselves. What do you think? The brocade-robed old man continued to persuade him. Seeing that Baihua Fairy had already entered the palace gate, Yan Bugui gritted his teeth and sent his voice back. Then I'll have to trouble Senior Chong and Senior Feng to ensure their safety. The brocade-robed old man's face lit up, nodded to the linen-robed old man and suddenly shouted, "Kill!" As soon as the order was given, the two old men behind Yen Bugui had already disappeared. Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were both shocked and shouted at the same time, "Not good!" The two of them quickly flew back into Baihua Palace, but compared to a Tribulation Realm late-stage cultivator's teleportation, their speed was too slow. Baihua Fairy probably didn't think that Yen Bugui would order people to use force on her. Hearing the commotion behind her, before she could even react, the acupuncture point on her back was instantly struck. A powerful surge of true essence rushed into her body, cutting off any chance of resistance. Yen Zixia was also the same. Yu Qianchou, who was hiding in the shadows, thought that Yen Bugui was deeply in love with his wife and wouldn't use force, but he didn't expect this to be the case. He didn't expect the foreign cultivators to instigate Yen Bugui. The Baihua Palace disciples guarding the palace gate were shocked and immediately attacked the two old men with their flying swords. But with their cultivation, this kind of action is nothing but child's play for a Tribulation Realm late-stage cultivator. The two of them unleashed a powerful wave of true qi to knock the flying swords away. Several disciples screamed in pain, spat out blood as they were sent flying and died on the spot. Baihua Fairy and Yen Zixia's shoulders were being held down. They couldn't even move their fingers. Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan, who just arrived, saw that the mother and daughter were being restrained by the two Tribulation Realm late-stage cultivators, so they didn't dare to act rashly. The brocade-robed old man smiled at the two of them. "I know you two are the ones in charge here. Tell your people to stop. Otherwise these two beauties are going to suffer." Screams and screams could be heard outside. The group of foreign cultivators had already started a massacre. The Cultivation Alliance's members who stayed behind were all mixed in cultivation, so how could they be a match for them? They were all killed in just a few moves. But facing a foreign enemy, their blood was roused and they all charged forward without fear of death. Even if they were afraid of death, there was no way to escape. If they ran away from this battle, there would probably be no place for them in the world. Blood was boiling everywhere. In the blink of an eye, many people had already given up their lives. Such a heroic scene caused Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan to look at each other, then quickly made the decision to retreat. The brocade-robed old man used the mother and daughter to threaten them, but it didn't work at all. Not only did the two of them not tell the Cultivation Alliance to stop, they even gave up on the safety of Baihua Fairy and Yen Zixia. Their anger turned into endless killing intent as they returned to the battlefield with all their might. "Ah!" Dongfeng Chang'ao shouted angrily as he thrust his spear forward. Below, a foreign Tribulation Realm early-stage cultivator, who had just used a flying sword to take the lives of two people, sneered and was about to summon his sword to kill again. Suddenly, he heard a loud roar from the sky. When he looked up, a golden spear had directly knocked away his flying sword and was heading towards him. He was scared out of his wits and hurriedly tried to escape. But how could Dongfeng Chang'ao let him go? Relying on his superior speed, he raised his spear and cut him in half, sending his head flying. Dongfeng Chang'ao didn't stop. He turned around with his spear and looked for another person to fight. On the other side, Qiu Wuyuan was even more ferocious than Dongfeng Chang'ao. The Black Moon Pagoda danced around his body like a ghost, following him wherever he went. Every time he attacked, he would destroy the opponent's magic tools or magic treasures. Then, the Black Moon Pagoda moved like a phantom, reaping the opponent's life with lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, Qiu Wuyuan had taken the lives of 3 Tribulation passing stage cultivators. The Black Moon Pagoda was indeed the most ferocious weapon of the diabolism. It was indeed powerful. With such power, when the foreign Tribulation passing stage cultivators saw Qiu Wuyuan rushing towards them with the Black Moon Pagoda, they quickly dodged it. One of them was holding the Golden Origin Spear, while the other was carrying the Black Moon Pagoda. They fought fiercely and were stained with blood. They killed more than 10 people in a row, which greatly boosted the morale of their side. The people of the Cultivation Alliance immediately fought back with all their might. Although they knew that they were going to die, their morale was high. They only wanted to entangle the other foreign cultivators and wait for Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan to come and avenge them. This scene caused Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan's eyes to turn red. They roared in anger and grief. The golden light and the black shadow would not stop until one of them was dead. The old man was stunned by this sudden change. He knew that these two were the strongest among the people on the other side, and seeing how respectful they were towards Baihua Fairy, he decided to use the lives of Baihua Fairy and her daughter to threaten them. But who would have thought that at this crucial moment, they wouldn't even care about their threats? The two of them tacitly turned around and killed without any hesitation, causing so many people on their side to run away. He really didn't expect the two of them to be so strong. The Tribulation passing stage cultivators he brought with him were all killed without being able to fight back. From this, it could be seen that the two of them were indeed people sent by the number one sects of the righteous and diabolism. They were not simple. Yen Bugue stood alone outside the battlefield, watching his junior brother fight with his life on the line, as well as a group of Chinese cultivators fighting angrily. He suddenly felt his hands and feet go numb. He had always thought that all Chinese cultivators were selfish and that the so-called righteousness was nothing but a joke. He never thought that he would see such a scene. He even doubted that with the help of a group of foreign cultivators, could he really unify the entire Chinese cultivation world. He was originally full of confidence, but now his willpower was shaken. Looking at the restrained by Hua Fairy and Yen Zixia, he saw that the two of them had both turned away from the cruel battlefield, their eyes filled with grief and indignation, staring at him. Yen Zixia's eyes were filled with tears. The hatred in her eyes made him shudder. Yen Bugue had never seen his daughter look at him like that before. The brocade-robed old man was originally controlling by Hua Fairy, but right now his face was pale as he put his hand on Yen Zixia's shoulder and spoke in a low voice. "Junior brother, leave this to me, you go kill those two for me." Chapter 4:11. Ze had never seen such a scene before. She didn't know what righteousness was, but she felt an inexplicable sadness that she had never felt before. The temptress lost all her charm at this moment, and her body was trembling uncontrollably. She decided to join the battle, but just as she took a step forward, her arm was grabbed by Yu Qianqiu. Although she told Qiu Wuyuan that the war in the cultivation world had nothing to do with her, she actually believed that by staying by Yu Qianqiu's side, she would be able to better use his hidden strength. When she glanced at him, she saw that he was looking down expressionlessly, unbelievably calm. She instantly felt a chill in her heart. She didn't expect him to just stand by and watch. "Just stand by and watch, don't grab me." The temptress's face was as cold as frost. "Why are you so agitated?" Yu Qianqiu didn't have the respect a disciple had for his mistress. He snorted coldly and said, "What a woman's view! No wonder the illusion palace was destroyed in your hands. Those who don't plan for the world can't plan for a moment, and those who don't plan for the overall situation can't plan for a region. So what if some people die? Don't tell me that you, the master of a palace, don't know the principle of mercy not leading an army? I'm here, why are you panicking?" Ze didn't know so many principles, but she looked at the temptress in deep thought. In fact, she didn't know what to do in such a situation. She felt that Yu Qianqiu was right to say such nice words. The temptress was stunned. She didn't expect that Yu Qianqiu would dare to use the manly way on her. But strangely, she felt that it was very useful. She looked at her arm that was being grabbed by him, and the frost on her face disappeared. She thought, as long as you don't just stand by and watch. Yu Qianqiu had been paying attention to what was happening below. When he saw that the old man in linen had handed over control of Yen Zixia to the old man in embroidered robes, he quickly glanced at Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan. His eyes narrowed and he pointed at the old man in linen robes. "Z, keep an eye on him. If he dares to make a move, stop him immediately and kill him without mercy." Ze nodded heavily and said, "N." Then, a piece of purple-black bamboo appeared in her hand. Hearing this, the enchantress of 100 Charm immediately felt much more at ease. Sure enough, as soon as the old man in linen handed over the man, he shot towards Qiu Wuyuan. Ze teleported and disappeared almost at the same time. Qiu Wuyuan, who was in the midst of fighting, was shocked when he heard the sound of something flying towards him. He knew that a top-notch expert had arrived. Taking the opportunity to look back, he felt that something was wrong. There was a world of difference between an expert in the final phase of the Tribulation stage and a cultivator in the middle phase of the Tribulation stage. Although he had the Black Moon Pagoda, he was not arrogant enough to fight against an expert in the final phase of the Tribulation stage. On the other side, Dongfang Chang'ao also shouted a warning, "Be careful, Qiu Wuan." He also brandished his spear and rushed over to lend a hand. Otherwise, if Qiu Wuyuan was defeated, he would not be able to save Qiu Wuyuan alone. However, his opponent also understood that once the old man in linen robes dealt with Qiu Wuyuan, His next target would definitely be Dongfang Chong Ao. Immediately, 3 foreign cultivators rushed over and formed a triangle to hold Dongfang Chong Ao back. They did not aim to defeat him, they just needed to hold him back. Before the old man in linen robes arrived, a silver light had already left his hand and shot towards Qiu Wuyuan with a strong current of air. Its speed and power were hard to predict, but Qiu Wuyuan was also being held back and could not get away. His eyes were filled with grief and indignation, and he was about to make his last attack. Elder Qiu, run! A group of weak Huaxia cultivators rushed over in a frenzy, attacking the foreign cultivators who were trapping Qiu Wuyuan without any regard for their lives. There were even several cultivators who soared into the sky, wanting to risk their lives to block the old man in linen robes. However, they were struck by a casual palm strike from the old man, and the tyrannical force immediately smashed their flesh and blood into pieces. None of them were spared. Yan Bugue, who was outside, saw his junior brother's reaction and smacked his lips with difficulty. After all, they had been brothers for many years and could not be thrown away so easily. However, since things had already come to this, there was no turning back. Fight! Suddenly, a beautiful woman's shout was heard. A black shadow shot over and directly hit the silver light released by the old man in linen robes away, immediately saving Qiu Wuyuan from danger. Zi appeared out of thin air and recalled the purplish-black bamboo. She shouted again. Fight! The black shadow shot towards the old man in linen robes again. A strong current of air broke through the air and the old man was shocked. He shook his arms and summoned the silver light. Together, they soared into the sky and barely avoided the black shadow. When Qiu Wuyuan saw the person who saved him, he instantly became spirited and said, "Thank you, Miss Zi." In fact, he was not the only one who felt that way. Everyone else was also spirited. When they were in danger, a strong help suddenly came. This kind of feeling was hard to understand, even if it was just a ray of hope. Moreover, everyone knew that Zi had been by Yu Qianchou's side for a long time. Since she was here, that guy should be here soon. The guy who was not very famous but could control 1,000 swords appeared in everyone's mind. That guy was an expert in fighting. Moreover, he had more than 600 rogue cultivators under him. Even if they were useless, they could still be of some use. When they thought of more than 600 people coming, everyone couldn't help but look forward to it. Zi raised her head and looked at the sky, then quickly looked at Qiu Wuyuan who was trapped. No one knew what she was thinking, but she shot out the rod in her hand with a swoosh sound. The strong wind blew, and the people below were no match for her. They were all scared out of their wits. However, there was still one person who couldn't escape as fast as the rod. Because he was the target, he immediately let out a scream. After smashing one of the people who trapped Qiu Wuyuan to death, the rod shot back and accompanied Zi to the sky. A linen robe and Zi quickly fought in the sky. From time to time, the sound of fight, fight, fight could be heard. It seemed that Zi's great skill of shifting positions was indeed useful. It was almost suppressing the old man in linen robes. The old man was in danger and was suffering unspeakably. Only then did he realize that his opponent's skills were not just a little higher than his. Especially that strange body movement, it was almost impossible to defend against it. What a joke! Although Zi didn't know much about the ways of the world, but in terms of cultivation, Nongzhu spared no effort in teaching her. After all, they were master and disciple in name, but in reality, Zi was his daughter. When he couldn't find a suitable opponent for his daughter, he would personally go and spar with her. Think about it. A person who could fight against an ascended realm middle stage cultivator for a long time would naturally be able to fight against a tribulation passing stage cultivator with ease. The old man in linen robes who was restraining by Hua Fairy and Yan Zixia stared at the sky with a serious expression, then suddenly shouted, "Zi, my brother and I have no grudge against you. Why aren't you staying in your southern sea purple bamboo forest? Why are you here to fight against us?" Zi was in the middle of the fight, so she didn't have time to answer him. Her only reply was, "Fight, fight, fight." Beauty of 100 Charms stared at the fight in the sky, thinking about why she purposely provoked her last night. Now that she thought about it, she couldn't help but feel a little scared. This Zi looks like she doesn't know much about the ways of the world. She didn't expect her to be so strong. Seems like it's better not to provoke her, otherwise if she gets angry, no one will be able to protect her. Yu Qianchou saw that Zi had the upper hand and wouldn't be in danger, so he breathed a sigh of relief. His gaze turned back to the battlefield where the number of casualties was increasing, silently calculating. The old man in linen robes wouldn't let go of the mother and daughter easily. The old man in linen robes was being restrained by Ze, and the two late-stage Tribulation passing stage cultivators couldn't attack, so their threat was greatly reduced. It's time for me to act, otherwise if Ze shows up and I don't show up, I won't be able to explain myself to everyone. Yu Qianqiu silently counted the remaining 30-plus cultivators. It seems like Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan had used up too much of their energy, so they were starting to show signs of exhaustion. His gaze became determined, and a ball of blue fire appeared in his hand. The Allure Beauty's pupils shrank, not knowing what he was going to do, but the blue fire gradually condensed into a fireball in his palm, and Yu Qianqiu suddenly threw the blue fireball directly into the sky. A ray of blue light exploded below the battle between Ze and the old man in linen robes, and the high temperature made the two of them a little uncomfortable. The sudden abnormal scene made the old man in linen robes raise his head to look, and many people also took the opportunity to look, only to see the words, "Prepare for battle, gather and surround them," condensed in the blue fire in the sky. These words didn't appear for long, and gradually disappeared in the sky. However, the meaning of these words was thought-provoking. Prepare for battle, gather and surround them appeared at this time. Was there even a need to think? The only thing everyone was worried about was not knowing whether it was a friend or a foe. "It's Yu Qianqiu's blue fire," someone shouted from below, and the Cultivation Alliance immediately shouted, "Help is here, our help is here." The group of foreign cultivators felt a little guilty, and while fighting, they were distracted from time to time, not knowing what kind of powerful help made their opponents so happy. The old man in linen robes in the sky didn't dare to be distracted to deal with Ze, but suddenly found that a large number of people in black suddenly appeared from all directions, like a swarm of locusts. He didn't know where they came from, but there were at least 500 or 600 people, and all of them were flying quickly in the sky. Based on this alone, it could be concluded that these people in black all had the cultivation of the Tribulation stage. Otherwise, even a nascent soul late-stage cultivator couldn't fly so fast in the sky. 500 or 600 Tribulation stage cultivators. There were so many hidden masters in the 100 Flowers Valley. This was bad. When the old man in linen robes realized this, he was shocked, and hurriedly sent a voice transmission to the old man in linen robes below. "Senior brother, be careful." The voice transmission stopped abruptly, and the old man in linen robes felt a great pain in his back, thinking that it was over. Looking down, he saw a black shadow flying out from his chest where his heart was. At the moment when he was distracted, his defense was a bit lax, and Ze finally found a chance to kill him. The old man in linen robes suddenly looked up to the sky, saw everything and immediately shouted, "Ze bitch, you dare!" Bai Hua Fairy and Yan Zixia were suddenly gripped by the strength of his hand. They felt like their shoulders were about to be crushed, but they couldn't say anything. Fight! Ze was also ruthless, hitting the opponent's vital point in one strike. Seeing the opponent falling down, she still wasn't willing to give up, so she called back the bamboo with a strong gust of wind, directly smashing the head of the half-dead person into nothingness. Sure enough, she carried out Yu Qianqiu's kill without mercy to the end. Chapter 4:12. The purplish-black bamboo shook off the dirt on its body in the air, then flew back to Ziyi's hand. The old man in embroidered robes bellowed, "Slut!" Ziyi scoffed without needing anyone to call her. She directly landed in front of him, holding the bamboo in her hand, her face cold as she slowly approached. "It seems like she hasn't had enough yet." Yu Qianqiu silently felt bad. This little girl is a one-track mind. She only worships old man Bai's ruthlessness, so she doesn't care about the lives of Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter, so he hurriedly told 100 Charms Enchantress, "Send your voice to her, tell her not to act rashly. Be careful that they don't hurt the mother and daughter." 100 Charms Beauty understood the severity of the situation and quickly sent her voice. Ze glanced over, then stayed in front of the old man without moving. Seeing his junior brother die, the old man originally wanted to leave the mother and daughter behind to take revenge, but seeing Ze coming over, he immediately remembered that he's no match for her, so he held the mother and daughter tightly in his hands and spoke in a low voice. "If you dare act recklessly, I'll make the mother and daughter die in front of you first." Ze didn't say anything, only stood there and stared at him, giving him a lot of pressure. The black-clothed people landed from all directions, surrounding the entire battlefield. Each of them had a murderous look on their faces, ready to attack as soon as the order is given. The old man and Yen Bugui looked around, both shocked. These people definitely aren't their people. It's Yu Qianqiu's rogue cultivators. The Cultivation Alliance's side cheered. They confirmed their identities from the rogue cultivator on their chests. Aren't they the rogue cultivators that Yu Qianqiu brought here? But then they noticed something was wrong. Their aura is completely different from the previous rogue cultivators. Originally, they didn't stand in a proper manner, and even if they were to stand together, they wouldn't be able to form a team. However, as these people stood there casually, a sharp aura that was ready to be unleashed was obvious. Especially the eyes that were exposed under their masks were filled with killing intent, and each of them were like wolves waiting for an opportunity to hunt. The Allure Temptress looked at these people in surprise. Although she could see the words rogue cultivators on their chests, she thought more about it. The heroes who robbed them were all masked and dressed in black. Could it be them? He subconsciously glanced at Yu Qianqiu, only to see him walking out from behind a few trees with a calm face, with his hands behind his back. Standing on the hillside, his eyes scanned the surrounding black-clothed men, and an arrogant look appeared on his face. All of them were at the early stage of the crossing calamity. There were more than 600 of them. Where did he get all this from? The Enchantress of 100 Charms secretly clicked her tongue and silently followed him out. Suddenly, she heard the sound of wind coming from both sides and immediately became alert. Don't be nervous, he's one of us. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and said indifferently. Two black-clothed men quickly flashed over and stood side by side in front of Yu Qianqiu. They placed their right hands on their chests and bowed silently. The surrounding 600 black-clothed men also turned to face Yu Qianqiu and bowed in the same way. That indescribable aura was very stressful. Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly, and the black-clothed men resumed their battle preparations. The two black-clothed men in front of him flashed to the left and right of Yu Qianqiu and waited for orders. The Allure Temptress was slightly stunned, and could only stand guard behind Yu Qianqiu. In the eyes of the people at the foot of the hill, Yu Qianqiu and the black-clothed men on his left and right were indifferently observing the battle situation below. Yan Bugui's expression changed the moment he saw Yu Qianqiu. This guy had ruined his plans time and time again. It was really infuriating. Yu Qianqiu, why haven't you asked your men to make a move? When are you going to wait? Qiu Weiyuan shouted from below. It could be seen that his qi was indeed running out after the continuous fierce battle with Dongfang Chang'ao. Elder Qiu, I'm really sorry we're late. Please lead everyone away from the encirclement with Elder Dongfang. Don't worry about the matter of revenge. Leave it to us, the rogue cultivators, so that we won't be affected. Yu Qianqiu shouted loudly. The Allure Temptress behind him rolled her eyes. They were obviously early, but he said they were late. She stretched out her sharp index finger and wanted to poke his waist again. Who knew that the two black-clothed men beside him would suddenly turn their heads and stare coldly at her? Although the Allure Temptress's cultivation was higher than the two of them, she still felt a little creeped out by their sharp gaze. She embarrassedly withdrew her hand. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Weiyuan exchanged glances from afar. Then they shouted at the crowd together, "Everyone, retreat from the rogue cultivators' encirclement, quickly!" As they spoke, they struggled to break away from the entanglement of the few people. As they retreated, they did their best to provide cover for everyone. However, the foreign cultivators also understood that if they were to retreat, the opposing black-clothed men would most likely kill them. So they all stuck close to them and pestered them. Yu Qianqiu frowned and shouted softly, "Command support!" Yes. The two black-clothed men replied in unison, and quickly made an order with their hand signals. The surrounding black-clothed men immediately formed into a well-trained three-man battle formation. They quickly shrunk the encirclement and closed in on the people who were fighting. The Allure Temptress was shocked. Just a few simple hand signals were able to command so many Tribulation passing stage cultivators as if they were one person. It was simply unbelievable. Yan Bugui and the old man in embroidered robes turned pale with fright. They felt a serious threat. Zi was somewhat dumbfounded as she looked at her surroundings. Those black-clothed people were cold and intimidating. Were these the same people that Yu Qianqiu had brought to wander around previously? The black-clothed men directly passed by the 100 Flowers Palace, ignoring Zi and the old man in embroidered robes. They only surrounded the people outside the 100 Flowers Palace. The encirclement shrank like a sieve, gradually filtering out the disciples of the various sects of the Cultivation Alliance and forcing the foreign cultivators back. There were also some people who wanted to take advantage of the entanglement to escape. However, as soon as they stepped forward, The groups of 3 in front of them immediately separated one person from each other. The encirclement formation was not chaotic at all. However, several people attacked at the same time. When the foreign cultivator released his flying sword, he didn't even have the chance to take it back. He was cut into several pieces on the spot and instantly killed. Occasionally, there were a few who wanted to fly into the sky and escape, but they all met the same fate. The power displayed by the combined attack immediately shocked everyone present. The people that Yen Bugue brought with him no longer dared to test their sharpness and were all forced to retreat. All of the surviving Cultivation Alliance cultivators were finally able to safely retreat. In front of the 100 Flowers Palace, within a radius of 100 meters, more than 30 foreign cultivators were surrounded in panic, not knowing what would happen next. As soon as Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan came out, they immediately flew to Yu Qianzhou's side. When they saw the 2 black-clothed men beside him, they sized them up curiously. Qiu Wuyuan said in surprise, "Yu Qianzhou, are they those rogue cultivators?" Yu Qianzhou looked at the 2 people who were covered in blood and said with a smile, "If it's not them, where would I come from?" As he said this, he pointed at Yen Bugue and ordered his men, "Capture this person alive. I want to exchange him for hostages. Leave no one alive. Kill." The 2 of them quickly gave the order, and the encirclement formation changed again, becoming a small team of 10 people. Half of them quickly rushed into the encirclement, and the other half quickly closed the encirclement again. A strangulation battle with an absolute advantage was displayed in front of the surviving members of the Cultivation Alliance, and it really shocked everyone. The opponent almost only had one chance to attack. Once the magic weapons or magic treasures in their hands were used, they would never be able to return, and they themselves would become a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Facing more than 300 cultivators at the Crossing Calamity stage, more than 30 cultivators at the Crossing Calamity stage were quickly separated. Facing a group attack alone, and the opponent's cooperation was seamless, one could imagine the outcome. It was a battle without any suspense. The black-clothed and masked rogue cultivators killed all the opponents in a moment, at the cost of no casualties. Yen Bugue looked around in horror. He was really the only one left. He never dreamed that there were so many Crossing Calamity stage experts hiding in the 100 Flowers Valley. Fortunately, the opponent obviously didn't want to kill him. The brocade-clothed old man looked down with a pale face. Although he wasn't surrounded, the purple clothes in front of him made it difficult for him to escape. Now the mother and daughter in his hands were his last life-saving talismans, and he could only hold on to them tightly. Yu Qianzhou shouted at him, "Old man in flowery clothes, listen up. I don't want to waste time with you. Let them go immediately, and I will let you and Yen Bugue go." "Words are no proof. How can I believe you?" the brocade-clothed old man shouted immediately. "I, Yu Qianzhou, value my credibility the most, and I have never gone back on my words. I guarantee with my credibility, you can rest assured," Yu Qianzhou said. The brocade-clothed old man sneered, "Credibility? Do you really think this old man is a 3-year-old child? If you swear an oath, this old man thinks it's better than credibility. You don't have the right to bargain with me. I said I will let you go, so of course I will keep my word." Yu Qianzhou coldly said, "I will count to 10 if you still don't let them go, Ze. Bring me that old man's head." Then he stared at Yen Bugue and said in a low voice, "And don't let him live." "No." Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan both shouted. Dongfang Chang'ao shook his head. "Yu Qianzhou, we can negotiate." Bai Hua Fairy had already closed her eyes, while Yen Zixia tearfully stared at Yu Qianzhou, but he ignored her. "I have never gone back on my words. If you have the guts, then save the mother and daughter right now," Yu Qianzhou coldly said to Dongfang Chang'ao, then turned around and began to count. 1, 2, 3. And his speed wasn't slow either. Ze slowly stepped forward. The brocade-clothed old man's face changed. He didn't think that she wouldn't even consider and forced him to make a decision, and in such a hurry. When he counted to 8, he finally shouted, "Wait. If you have something to say then say it. I don't have the patience." Yu Qianzhou coldly snorted and continued to count. 9. "I agree," the brocade-clothed old man shouted. "I hope you can keep your promise." He really didn't have a choice, even if he killed the mother and daughter and left Yen Bugue to escape from Ze. Such a big matter would eventually reach Yen Zhuixing's ears. It's impossible to hide it. With Yan Zhuixing's relationship with Man Hu and the others, sooner or later they won't let him go. He might as well take a gamble, as long as he can escape. Even letting the mother and daughter go is the same. At least he can explain it to Yan Zhuixing. What if they keep their promise? That's even better. Hearing that, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan's hearts that were already in their throats finally calmed down. It's good that you agree. In this world, you can doubt anything, but Yu Qianzhou's character, you definitely don't need to doubt it, it's always been tested. Yu Qianzhou nodded and casually said. Chapter 413. Everyone's eyes were focused on the old man, cautiously waiting for his next move. No one noticed, unknowingly, Yu Qianzhou has become the leader of this place. In fact, this was also his goal. He could have acted earlier, that way the Cultivation Alliance wouldn't have to pay such a heavy price. But he waited until the Cultivation Alliance couldn't hold on any longer, when even the brave Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were at a disadvantage. Only then did he act. Although adding flowers to a brocade is good, it's not as good as sending charcoal in the snow to achieve his goal. After the Cultivation Alliance sacrificed hundreds of lives, he managed to turn the tide. Now he's the leader here. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan can't interfere. From today onwards, no one in the cultivation world can say that he, the hero, is the scum of the cultivation world. He's long since disliked this title. Now that Yan Bugui and the others have arrived, of course he has to take advantage of the situation. Since you dare to call me a scum of the cultivation world, then I'll make you pay with your blood to take back this title. From the moment he was watching the battle from the shadows, he already had this thought. Only when the situation was out of his expectations did he start to interfere. Although he agreed, the old man was still a bit hesitant, but in the end he still gritted his teeth and pushed by Hua Fairy and Yan Zixia away. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan quickly went to protect the mother and daughter. The old man looked at Yan Bugui who was surrounded below, then shouted to Yu Qianzhou. Yu Qianzhou, I've let them go, it's time to fulfill your promise. Your worries are unnecessary. I've already said that you can doubt anything, but you definitely don't need to doubt my character. I've always been a man of my words, I've never discounted them. Yu Qianzhou waved his hand. Let them go. With that order, the black-clothed men surrounding Yan Bugui quickly moved away. The embroidered-robed old man immediately shouted, Let's go. He immediately shot into the sky. Yan Bugui looked at by Hua Fairy and Yan Zixia with a complicated gaze, but didn't dare to stay any longer and also shot into the sky to chase after them. The two of them broke through the seal formation above the 100 Flowers Valley and quickly disappeared. Retreat. Yu Qianzhou nodded. The black-robed men on both sides immediately issued an order. The black-robed men below quickly collected the storage pouches of the dead foreign cultivators. Then, they flew across the sky and disappeared into the surrounding mountains, as if they had never appeared. Everyone was stunned. Could these people really be those rogue cultivators? Even when retreating, they didn't forget to scavenge some things. They really had the demeanor of those poor rogue cultivators. However, at least he still had some morals and didn't touch the belongings of the dead disciples of the various sections. Otherwise, it would really be difficult to recover them. Actually, it had nothing to do with morality. Yu Qianzhou knew that these second-rate disciples didn't have anything valuable on them. Why would they do something so shameful and cause trouble? On the other hand, the guests that came from afar probably had quite a bit of money on them, so he should take them back to check. Zi flashed back to Yu Qianzhou's side. Yu Qianzhou couldn't help but look at Yan Zixia's sorrowful eyes. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly, thinking, Eldest miss, please don't blame me for being cruel just now. The crueler I am, the safer you and your mother will be. I hope you understand. At this time, the exhausted by Zitsong's group of 4 ran over and bowed, saying, Thank you Sir and Miss Zi, for saving our lives. Zi looked at the ragged clothes of the 4 people and frowned, but didn't say anything. No need to thank me, it's what I should do. Yu Qianzhou nodded and smiled. He also noticed the 4 people just now. It seems that the shopkeepers and workers of the 4 great family shops were almost all killed in order to protect them. Luckily, they managed to save their lives, otherwise a few people who shouldn't have died would have died in vain. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. You guys talk. A green light flashed from his sleeve, and Yu Qianzhou stepped on his sword and left. The temptress didn't even know the 4 people, so what was there to talk about? Of course she followed them. Zi glanced at the 4 people. What was there to talk about? She only felt disgusted, so she sprung away. Everyone watched the three people leave, and then looked at the outside of the 100 Flowers Palace. There were corpses everywhere, and the survivors from each sect started to collect the corpses. The market in the 100 Flowers Valley was already deserted. When the three of them returned to the 100 Flowers house, there was actually no one there. They probably all went to help just now. Yu Qianqiu rubbed his stomach and said, I didn't eat anything at first, and now there's no one. What bad luck. There should be ingredients in the kitchen. You guys go and rest first. I'll send them up later. The temptress smiled and slowly walked to the back. She really did look like a servant. Yu Qianqiu didn't stand on ceremony and directly went upstairs. After entering the room, he sat in front of the round table in the center and poured himself a cup of tea. As he drank, he looked at Xueqi and asked, If you have anything you want to ask, just ask. Don't stifle yourself. This girl's doubts were all written on her face, and she didn't know how to hide it. Xueqi clasped her hands together and fidgeted for a while. Suddenly, she looked at the door guiltily and turned back to ask, Do you want me to massage your shoulders? What? Yu Qianqiu was stunned, and thought he heard wrong. Do you want me to massage your shoulders? Xueqi repeated. Yu Qianqiu's expression twitched. He didn't know what was wrong with this woman. She actually wanted to do such a thing. Even if she gave face to her father, he wouldn't dare to let her do it. So he shook his head and said, No need, no need. If you have something to say, just say it. Xueqi frowned slightly. It seemed that she was a little unhappy that he didn't let her massage him. She bit her lips and sat in front of Yu Qianqiu. She asked, Those loose cultivators are not loose cultivators at all. Where did you find them? Why don't I know? Yu Qianqiu replied without hesitation, Of course I hired them with money. If you don't pay, who would help you for free? Xueqi's expression became serious and said, The joint attack of these people is very powerful. If I was surrounded by them, I wouldn't be able to last long if I didn't escape. You must have spent a lot of money to hire so many people at once, right? The sound of people coming upstairs came from outside. Yu Qianqiu didn't deny it and just replied with an N. After a while, the temptress came in with a pile of food, and the table was almost full. The people from various sects were busy cleaning up the mess outside, but the three of them were eating and drinking comfortably in the room. The temptress took the opportunity to pour wine for Yu Qianqiu and asked, Just now, that old man in embroidered robes had the lives of Guan Muxue and her daughter in his hands. You let him go, and that's still acceptable. But you clearly had the chance to kill Yan Bugue. Why did you use him to exchange for the lives of the mother and daughter? You let him escape for nothing. Yu Qianqiu scratched his nose and thought to himself, The Yan father and son are targeting the Cultivation Alliance, not me. My interference has already made them very unhappy. If I really kill Yan Bugue, then just wait and see. Yan Xueqi will definitely lead a group of people to fight me. The entire Chinese cultivation world needs to form the Cultivation Alliance to be able to fight them. I have nothing better to do. If I want to become enemies with these powerful people who killed my father, I'd be more likely to have a problem with my brain. You guys continue to fight. I'll just cheer you on from the side. Don't think that I'll get too involved. Yu Qianqiu drank a mouthful of wine and ate a mouthful of food, then casually explained. Some time ago, in order to split the money, the previous palace master of the 10,000 demons, Senior Yan Wuchen, had given me face. How could I have the cheek to kill his only son? Just take it as returning the old man's favor. The temptress nodded slightly. She had also heard about the matter of splitting the money, but she was more or less confused. There was no other reason, but the key was that this little fox was too sincere, which made her suspicious. On the coast of the East Sea, the heroes of the Cultivation Alliance, the righteous and the evil sects were stationed there. The defensive line was pulled apart along the coast, spanning hundreds of miles. This was originally a place where the coastal residents lived and fished for generations. However, in order to not implicate these ordinary people, the Fuxian Island used its control over the secular imperial power to force the local residents to move away. Although it was done with good intentions, the relocation was not a small number. Therefore, hundreds of thousands of people were forced to leave their homes. For a time, it caused public discontent and almost led to a civil uprising. In the end, it was General Wei who led the army to suppress it forcefully. They barely managed to move away, but the resettlement of hundreds of thousands of people became a problem. However, corrupt officials were running rampant in the imperial court, and the money allocated by the upper echelons was embezzled layer by layer. How much of it could fall into the hands of the people? If the livelihood of hundreds of thousands of people became a problem, it was only a matter of time before something big happened. This was not something the cultivation world would care about, and no one would care about. They had already fought with the foreign cultivators a few times, and both sides had suffered some losses. Currently, both sides were actively adjusting, preparing to compete with each other again. However, at this time, the Cultivation Alliance suddenly received news that Yen Bugue had secretly brought dozens of Tribulation passing stage experts to attack the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance, the 100 Flowers Valley. Fortunately, Yu Qianqiu led more than 600 loose cultivators and arrived in time. Almost all of Yen Bugue's group were killed. Unfortunately, in order to save Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter, Yen Bugue and a late-stage Tribulation passing stage expert were released. When the various sects heard this news, they couldn't believe it. Just the loose cultivators under Yu Qianqiu could kill dozens of Tribulation passing stage experts? So they all sent messages to their own people to ask for more details. The result was that the more than 600 loose cultivators led by Yu Qianqiu were not ordinary loose cultivators. They were all Tribulation passing stage experts. The various sects were shocked when they heard this. More than 600 Tribulation passing stage experts? After confirming it several times, they finally believed it was true. The various sects gathered again to discuss this matter. It was a crucial moment in the war. How could they not use so many experts in the rear? Soda Luo sect suggested that no matter where those loose cultivators came from, Yu Qianqiu could leave 50 loose cultivators to continue defending the 100 Flowers Valley, and the remaining 500 loose cultivators would be transferred to the various sects to prepare for the war. This proposal was unanimously supported by the various sections. Everyone knew very well why they did this. No one could rest assured that Yu Qianqiu had such a strong force in his hands. Especially sects like the Luo sect who had a grudge against him. It was better to split them up as soon as possible. Of course, jealousy was also a practical reason. All the sects wanted to take a bite out of it. The news of the transfer was immediately sent back. When Dongfang Chang Ao and Qiu Wu Yuan received the news, they looked at each other. Anyone with a brain would know what it meant, not to mention someone like Yu Qianqiu who didn't want to be at a disadvantage. Dongfang Chang Ao said in a low voice, "Brother Qiu, you and Yu Qianqiu have always been brothers. I think it's better for you to make the decision." Chapter 4:14. There's no need for me to explain what this means. Qiu Wu Yuan tossed the jade archive in his hand onto the tea table and chuckled. Didn't you see how obedient those people are towards Yu Qianqiu? Do you think Yu Qianqiu will obediently hand over such a useful subordinate? Sigh. Whether he's willing or not, one of us has to go talk to him. Otherwise, we won't be able to answer to the various sections. Dongfang Chang'ao said helplessly. He just saved our lives, and we're going to cut his flesh off. Who has the guts to say such a thing? Qiu Wu Yuan slapped the tea table beside him. Dongfang Chang'ao frowned. They didn't see the situation at the time. It's easy for them to talk. But since my supporting Immortal Island and the 10,000 demons have agreed, and we're the ones in charge here, only you and I can talk to him. Talk my ass. Qiu Wu Yuan shot to his feet. He pointed to the east and said angrily, "They only dared to speak so shamelessly because they're far away from us. Believe it or not, if they were face to face, none of them would dare to say something like that to Yu Qianqiu's face. With that brat's virtue, no matter how high your cultivation base is, no matter who you are, he dares to kill you on the spot. Which sect would dare to fart like that? The decree of the 10,000 demons is also here. Would you dare to disobey it?" Dongfang Chang'ao asked. When Qiu Wu Yuan heard that, he was so angry that he glared at him and sat down again. Dongfang Chang'ao stood up and sighed. "We can't waste our time here. Let's go. We'll go together. If we're going to lose face, we'll lose face together." Upstairs in the 100 Flowers house, Yu Qianqiu was pinching his chin and smiling coldly at the window. The moment the coast of the East Sea came out with the results of the discussion, Bai Shan had immediately sent a message to him and had the Bai clan's people inform him of the news. He waited there to see who in the Cultivation Alliance would tell him the good news. The Allure Enchantress, who was leaning on the side, frowned slightly. She was secretly the leader of the pink sect, so she naturally knew the results of the discussion. Yu Qianqiu glanced at her and sneered, "None of you so-called sects are good people. If I had known earlier, I would have killed all the disciples of the various sects in the 100 Flowers Valley. A bunch of people who bite the hand that feeds them." The temptress rolled her eyes and said, "Why are you scolding me too? Most of the sects agree. How can a small pink sect like me stop it? Besides, are you really that easy to talk to? Will you hand him over?" "Humph." Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly but didn't say anything. He thought to himself, "There's more to come, let's play slowly." "Hey, let me ask you, what's the relationship between the 600 lone cultivators and the hero?" The allure enchantress smiled and leaned over, then poked his waist with her finger. Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said, "There's no relationship at all, don't think too much." Ze, who was sitting obediently at the side, widened her eyes and looked at the two of them. She could understand the first part of the conversation, but the more she listened, the more confused she became. Seeing the two of them being intimate with each other, an inexplicable feeling of jealousy arose in her heart. "They're here," Yu Qianqiu said as he looked at Dongfang Chang'ao and Xueqi. The allure enchantress looked over, and the two people below also saw the two people at the window above. They looked at each other and walked into the 100 Flowers Valley in silence. Once the two of them entered the room, Yu Qianqiu waved his hand at them and said, "You don't have to say anything, I already know. For the sake of the big picture, I don't have any opinions, but to be honest, I can't make the decision for those lone cultivators. If you have anything to say it to them face to face. I won't get involved, in case they say that I'm trying to ruin things. Let's go. Follow me to see them." The two of them were stunned. Then they thought about it and realized that it was true. The people from the 4 major clans had probably told him before they did. But this was also good, to avoid awkwardness. Thus, the two of them didn't say a word and followed him out. However, they were cursing in their hearts. Is this guy that easy to talk to? Once they left the 100 Flowers Valley, they saw people bowing to Yu Qianqiu. After all, he saved everyone's lives. Yu Qianqiu smiled and waved his hand along the way. The group left the 100 Flowers Valley. Yu Qianqiu threw out a flying sword and stepped on it. The few of them landed in a remote valley. Looking around and not seeing anyone, Yu Qianqiu clapped his hands. Suddenly, someone shouted from a dark corner of the valley, "Who's there?" "The Heavenly King covers the Earth Tiger." Yu Qianqiu shook his head and said something that confused the few of them. Someone in the dark immediately replied, "The pagoda suppresses the river demon." The few of them immediately understood that it was a secret code. They were all shocked by such a classic secret code and looked at each other. A few figures shot over. They were the loose cultivators. Most of the black cloth covering their heads had been lifted up, revealing their noses and mouths. Their mouths were stained with a lot of mud, and they were chewing as if they were eating something. Dongfang Chang'ao and the others shifted their gazes to their hands. Some of them were holding wild sweet potatoes, while others were holding wild mountain spirits. Most of them had been bitten off. They were eating this, but they didn't seem to have been washed, so they just casually peeled the dirt and ate it. The few of them were confused and didn't know what was going on. However, Yu Qianqiu shook his head and sighed. "Brothers, I've let you down." Sigh. Elder Dongfang of Supporting Celestial Island and Elder Qiu of 10,000 Demons have brought the decree of the Cultivation Alliance. Do as you wish, I won't say anything else. After that, he quietly walked to the side with his back facing the others. Let them down? What did this guy do? The few of them were even more confused. Dongfang Chang'ao and Xueqi exchanged glances. Xueqi took a step forward and coughed. "We've received a decree from the Cultivation Alliance. In order to deal with the foreign cultivators' provocation, we've decided to transfer 500 people from your group to support them. Prepare to depart today." The leader spat out the thing in his mouth and waved his hand at Xueqi. "What bullshit decree? We're done. We're not going to do it anymore. When they took the money, they didn't give us a share, but when they fought for their lives, they thought of us. Damn it, we haven't even gotten a single spirit stone until now. We've been digging for these things in the mountains every day to eat. What a joke." As he said that, he threw away the half of the wild sweet potato. The few people beside him also threw away the things in their hands and shouted, That's right, if you don't give us money, we're done, we're done. They wiped their mouths and pulled down their masks again. Dongfeng Chong Ao frowned, and Qiu Wuyuan's face darkened. Neither of them were fools. In the end, they made such a big scene to scare people. In the end, it was all for money. It was very Yu Qianqiu's style. If it wasn't Yu Qianqiu's instruction, then it would be a miracle. Ze nodded in agreement with these masked rogue cultivators' statement that they wouldn't do it if they didn't give them money. However, she was a little confused as to why they would eat this thing. Allure Beauty couldn't help but smile. If this guy wanted to do it, why didn't he make it more realistic? Why did he have to make it so full of flaws? Would a tribulation passing stage cultivator be so hungry that they would dig wild sweet potatoes in the mountains to eat? With their cultivation, it wouldn't be a problem for them to abstain from food for half a year. Asking for money with this reason was too lame. Yu Qianqiu, what do you mean? Qiu Wuyuan turned around and asked. His face darkened, as if he had been tricked. Humph. Yu Qianqiu snorted coldly. He thought to himself, it's good that you understand. I'm just afraid that you don't, or you'll really think that I'm an idiot. He slowly turned around and said, I don't mean anything. What they mean is their own, it has nothing to do with me. Dongfeng Chong Ao patted Qiu Wuyuan's arm, signaling him to calm down. He walked out and said to the rogue cultivators, we've already delivered the decree. If you have any requests, why don't you tell me? I'll pass it on to the Cultivation Alliance. Elder Dongfeng is wise. The leader of the masked rogue cultivators cupped his fists and said, we're all rogue cultivators. When the Cultivation Alliance doesn't need us, they don't even bother to look us in the eye. Now that we can use it, they want us to risk our lives for a so-called decree. What a good plan. We have the elderly and the young to take care of, and we don't have a sect to guarantee us. If we die, we'll lose everything. Now we only have one request, and that is to give us some settlement allowance. That way, even if we die, we can't say anything. We have the elderly and the young to take care of? Settlement allowance? Why does it sound like something from the secular world? Dongfeng Chang'ao was slightly stunned. He almost didn't understand what they meant, but he understood that they still wanted money. He took a deep breath and tried to remain calm. He said, how much money do you want? You can tell me directly. I'll pass it on to the Cultivation Alliance. As for whether they'll give it to you, I can't guarantee. The leader of the masked rogue cultivators said, we have more than 600 brothers. Each of us will ask for 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones. If it's less than that, then there's no need to say any more. More than 60 million upper-grade spirit stones. You're asking for an exorbitant price. Qiu Wuyuan sneered. Elder Qiu, you can say whatever you want. In short, don't force anyone. If you give us the money, we'll do it. If not, we'll just leave. The world is a big place. I believe that if we 600 brothers unite together, it won't be difficult to get 60 million. What do you think, Elder Qiu? The leader of the masked rogue cultivators said calmly, but everyone could hear the threat in his words. Dongfeng Chang'ao raised his hand to stop Qiu Wuyuan, who was a little impulsive. He nodded and said, I understand what you mean. I'll pass on the message. Let's put it this way for now. I'll let you know when I get a reply. Without another word, Qiu Wuyuan took the lead and flew away. Dongfeng Chang'ao cupped his hands at everyone and left as well. Good job. You guys continue. I won't disturb you anymore. Yu Qianqiu said with a smile. He threw out a flying sword and flew away. The two girls followed behind him. Just like that, the few of them slipped away, but they didn't get any practical results. When the various sects received the news, many of them immediately cursed. However, they still felt that letting these people gather together was a threat. They had to find a way to break them up. At the same time, they all wanted to recruit their own sections. Especially in this situation, everyone knew what it meant to have a group of tribulation passing stage cultivators. A slightly bigger sect could fork out 60 million upper-grade spirit stones each, but no one wanted to let the 600 rogue cultivators have it all to themselves. Therefore, the various sects came up with a way to pool the money. According to the calculation of 100,000 upper-grade spirit stones per person, the 600 rogue cultivators were divided up. When Dongfeng Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan received the news, They went to look for the rogue cultivators again. Who knew that these guys wouldn't act until they saw the rabbit? They insisted on getting the spirit stones first. Chapter 4:15. In the face of such a request, you couldn't say that they were too much, but they still didn't know what was good for them. Xueqi's face darkened, and he didn't say a word. He had never been threatened like this before. Dongfeng Chang'ao asked expressionlessly, "How many people do you have? Tell me, and I'll try replying to the Cultivation Alliance." 632 people. As long as we get the money, we promise we'll rush over immediately. Don't worry, we'll do what we say. Okay. Dongfeng Chang'ao agreed without hesitation. The two of them returned and once again conveyed the loose cultivator's request. Although the sects were furious when they heard the news, it was worth it to be able to poach all of Yu Qianzhou's subordinates and turn him into a loner. Therefore, they ordered the people in the 100 Flowers Valley to raise the money and give it to Dongfeng Chang'ao and Xueqi. The sects didn't believe that these people would run away with the money and harm the interests of the sections. Although 600 people in the early stage of Tribulation passing were powerful, they couldn't withstand the anger of the entire Chinese cultivation world. In the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance, Xueqi held the storage bag in his hand and snorted, "Now that the spirit stones are ready, let's see what else they can do, unless they want to go against the entire Cultivation Alliance." Dongfeng Chang'ao frowned slightly. Yu Qianzhou had been too calm for the past 2 days, as if this had nothing to do with him at all. Could he really hand over these people so easily? "Did you notice something wrong with Yu Qianzhou?" Dongfeng Chang'ao asked. "Yes. This kid never does things that are disadvantageous to him." "I'm a little uncertain now," Xueqi said suspiciously. "There must be something strange when something is out of the ordinary." Dongfeng Chang'ao pondered for a while, then shook his head and said, "Forget it. The Cultivation Alliance is in the wrong in this matter. We just need to do our duty as a messenger. Sigh. Let's go again." The two of them walked out of the headquarters of the Cultivation Alliance, and saw that the shops of the various sects were hung with white soul-summoning banners. Many people were wearing sackcloth. Tonight, there would be a memorial ceremony. Naturally, it was to mourn the dead disciples of the various sections. Upon seeing this, both of their hearts sank. Many disciples from supporting Immortals Island and 10,000 demons had also died. When they passed by the 100 Flowers house, Yu Qianzhou was holding a cup of tea and chatting with the 100 Charms enchantress. When he saw the two of them passing by, he waved his hand in a friendly manner, and the two of them nodded slightly in response. After watching the two of them leave the 100 Flowers Valley, the Allure Temptress turned around and smiled. "Little fox, what are you up to this time? Can you tell me a little?" Yu Qianzhou shook his head innocently and sighed. "I'm obviously living a peaceful life here. Why do you think I'm up to no good?" Sigh. "My heart was originally directed to the bright moon, but the bright moon shines on the ditch." "Then I'll wait and see. I hope there won't be a day where I reveal my foxtail." The Allure Temptress giggled. Ze, who was at the side, sadly realized that she was a little unnecessary here. Outside the 100 Flowers Valley, Xueqi frowned and said, "I'm a little curious. That Allure Temptress has been in hiding for so many years. How did she end up with Yu Qianzhou? You can go and ask her. See if you can find out the reason." Dongfeng Chang'ao said and flew towards the place where the wandering cultivators were hiding. Xueqi glared at him and followed. Ever since the battle, the two of them had become much more harmonious. They were still in the hidden and dark valley. The two of them looked around at the dark and damp environment. They really had to hand it to these people. They could actually hide here every day without moving. After the disgusting cut secret signal, the few people appeared again. Dongfeng Chang'ao threw the storage bag in his hand to the leader of the wandering cultivators and said, 63,200,000 upper-grade spiritual stones, not a single one less. You guys take a look." The leader nodded and said, "All right. Tomorrow morning, we'll gather outside the 100 Flowers Valley and immediately head to the coast of the East Sea." Dongfeng Chang'ao and Xueqi looked at each other. Obviously, they did not expect the other party to agree so easily. Xueqi said in a deep voice, "I've given you the spiritual stones. I hope you guys can keep your promise. I don't want 632 people to be missing." "Don't worry, Elder Qiu. Tomorrow, you'll see that all 632 wandering cultivators who showed up outside the Hundred Flowers Palace will appear outside the Hundred Flowers Valley for you to count. We won't go back on our words. The leader of the wandering cultivators promised in a powerful voice. That's great. But I hope you guys remember not to run away with the money. Yu Qianqiu won't be able to bear the consequences. Qiu Wuyuan warned. The meaning of his words was clear. We have already determined that you guys are Yu Qianqiu's people. If you run away, the Cultivation Alliance will not look for you. They will look for Yu Qianqiu to settle the score. He suspected that the most likely thing these people would do was to take off their masks and run away. These people were obviously not the wandering cultivators from before. No one knew them. If they ran away, it would be really hard to find them. Thank you for your advice, Elder Qiu. See you tomorrow. The leader of the wandering cultivators sneered and waved his hand. The few of them went back into the darkness. It was night and the moon was bright. The market in the Hundred Flowers Valley that was originally bright all night was closed. The center of the square that had been cleared out was piled with firewood, burning it to the sky. People from various sects gathered in circles and sat cross-legged. Many of them held a piece of wooden board in their hands and wrote the names of their dead disciples on it. Then, people from various sects threw these wooden boards into the raging fire. This was a unique ceremony in the Chinese cultivation world. There were no complicated ceremonies and no one spoke. It was very quiet. The only thing that could be heard was the sound of the burning fire and the crackling of the wood. As the wooden boards with names written on them were thrown into the fire, the dead disciples were completely cut off from this world. Tonight, the people from the various sects would silently sit here for the entire night, mourning the deaths of their fellow sect members. The Allure Beauty came upstairs with wine and food. She looked around the room and found that Yu Qianqiu was no longer in the room. Only Ziyi was leaning on the window, looking at the square where the ceremony was held. Looking at her, she seemed to be curious about this kind of ceremony. Miss Ziyi, where did Yu Qianqiu go? The Allure Beauty walked over and asked. Ziyi raised her hand and pointed to the opposite roof, saying, There. The Allure Beauty looked out of the window and looked in the direction of her finger. She saw Yu Qianqiu standing on the opposite roof with his hands behind his back. He was in a daze under the bright moon. No one knew what he was thinking about. Let's go up too. The Allure Beauty looked at the dishes in her hands and said. Ziyi nodded and took the lead to go up the opposite roof. The Allure Beauty held the things in her hands and floated up. When the two of them came, Yu Qianqiu looked back slightly and was a little indifferent. He turned his head and looked at the raging fire in the square. The two of them didn't disturb him. The Allure Beauty gave Ziyi a look and passed the tray in her hands to her. Then, she turned around and flashed back into the opposite house. The two of them had been together for a few days and were gradually able to accommodate each other. After a while, the Allure Beauty came back with a short table on the couch. She bent down and set it up on the roof. Then, she made a gesture to Ziyi. Ziyi's eyes lit up and understood the Allure Beauty's meaning. The two of them quickly took out the dishes and placed them on the short table. The Allure Beauty poured a cup of wine and walked to Yu Qianqiu's side. She smiled and said, Why are you so focused? What are you thinking? Ziyi looked at the two of them and looked at the big moon above her head. She picked up her chopsticks and ate happily. It seemed like it was the first time she ate under the moon. Yu Qianqiu shook his head slightly and said, Think about how many people will remember them after they die. If I, Yu Qianqiu, become like them one day, how many people will remember me, Yu Qianqiu? As soon as he said that, a few old turtles flew past under the bright moon, leaving behind a few ear-piercing screeches. In the present age, the old turtle was regarded as an inauspicious symbol. Coincidentally, it appeared when Yu Qianqiu said those words. The Allure Enchantress raised her head and took a look. Her expression changed slightly as she pouted. What nonsense are you talking about? Yu Qianqiu smiled faintly and took the cup from her hand. As soon as he put it to his lips, he suddenly paused. The Allure Beauty followed his gaze and saw that Bai Hua Fairy had personally led Bai Hua Palace's disciples to the square, blocking the gap formed by the sect's encirclement. I heard that the 600 or so loose cultivators have really accepted the Cultivation Alliance's decree, and will be heading to the Eastern Sea tomorrow. If Yan Bugue brings people to forcefully welcome Guan Muxue and her daughter, who can stop them with just the people here? The Allure Beauty looked away and said worriedly. Don't worry, they've suffered a great loss this time, so they won't come back for a while. Even if Yenbu Gue wants to come, those foreign cultivators won't risk the lives of their disciples for his own selfish reasons. After all, it's enough to scare them for a while. Under such a situation, Yenbu Gue would not dare to act rashly. Yu Qianqiu smiled confidently as he drained the wine in his cup in one gulp. It was as if he was passing judgment on the world. The Allure Beauty looked at him and was a bit surprised. A complicated look flashed through her eyes. She took the cup from his hand and said, "You've really calculated everything, but I don't believe that you'll really give those people to the Cultivation Alliance for nothing?" Yu Qianqiu smiled non-committally. This woman always talked about this topic after a few sentences. He changed the topic and said, "Palace Lord Yi, after the defeat of the Magical Illusion Palace, did you also hold such a memorial ceremony for the disciples who died in the battle?" Hearing this, the complexion of the Allure Beauty changed. She could no longer smile. With a somewhat absent-minded expression, she cast her gaze towards the raging flames on the square. She softly sighed, bowed, and placed the wine cup in her hand on the short table. Sitting cross-legged on the roof, she took out a zither from her storage bag and began to play it. The melancholy in the music was hard to suppress. The sudden sound of the zither attracted the attention of everyone in the square. Seeing that it was the three of them, they silently looked away and continued to meditate. On the other hand, Bai Hua Fairy and her daughter's gazes lingered on Yu Qianqiu for a bit. Purple Dress bit her chopsticks, looked at the Allure Beauty for a bit, then continued to eat her food. After getting rid of the Allure Beauty's question, Yu Qianqiu looked at the white banners in the square, thinking about the 600 subordinates who would set off tomorrow. He didn't know what would happen to them, so he couldn't help but feel a bit down. Thinking about the Utopia Alliance's army of almost 10,000 ready to go, his fighting spirit rose again. Listening to the Allure Beauty's melancholy music, he suddenly felt a sense of pride to compete against fate. He turned around and picked up the wine pot and cup, poured himself a cup, then another. After thinking for a bit, he gave the cup to the moon and shook his head. Circulating his true essence, he suppressed the zither music and slowly recited, "Singing to wine, how long is life? Like the morning dew, the days past are bitter. Generous, unforgettable. Only Du Kong can solve my worries. Indigo color, my heart is long. But for my lord, I have pondered until now." Every word was sent out clearly in the square, and everyone looked over in surprise. The recitation and melancholy music were supposed to be incompatible, but it produced another kind of beauty. They complemented each other, and it was extremely wonderful. The Allure Beauty stopped playing in shock and looked at him in a daze. This man gave her a feeling that he was becoming more and more unfathomable. He usually looked like he wasn't serious, but he was actually very astute. It was already surprising that he could play the zither and compose music, but in the blink of an eye, he could come up with such wonderful lyrics. It had to be said that he was a serious talent. Even if a talent like him wasn't in the cultivation world, he would definitely be famous in the secular world. Purple Dress stuck her chopsticks in her mouth again, staring at him with wide eyes. She also realized that she couldn't see through him anymore. The people below could not help but think, "Singing to wine, how long is there? Like the morning dew, the days past are bitter. Generous, unforgettable. Only Du Kong can solve my worries. But for my lord, my heart is long. But for my lord, I have pondered until now." After thinking about it, they all looked at Yu Qianqiu with a lot of emotions. From the words itself, it seems like he was lamenting about life, thinking about someone. This was a perfect eulogy. Bai Hua Fairy stared at Yu Qianqiu, who was drinking to the moon on the rooftop, and nodded slightly, then turned to look at her daughter. Seeing that she was a bit lost, she silently closed her eyes. As the music stopped, Yu Qianqiu also realized that his emotions were a bit messy, so he drank the rest of the wine in his cup and returned to 100 Flowers House. The next day, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan arrived at the 100 Flowers Valley early in the morning to wait. When the sun rose, the masked rogue cultivators really did come, gathering in front of the two of them from all directions. The leader walked over and clasped his fist. "We are ready. Please give us the pass." As it was the time of the war, every sect had sent people to search for suspicious cultivators. Without the pass of the Cultivation Alliance, it would be a bit troublesome. There might even be a misunderstanding. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan checked and nodded. Sure enough, They were all Tribulation passing realm early-stage cultivators. No one messed around. But then the two of them frowned. Xueqi shouted, "You took 63. 2 million high-grade spirit stones. There should be 632 people. Why are you still missing 2? Elder Qiu, no need to rush, we are true to our words. The other 2 should be here soon. Just wait for a bit," the leader said. Just as Xueqi snorted, someone shouted, they're coming, ah! I almost overslept." The voice was so familiar. Dongfang Chang'ao and Xueqi's expression changed at the same time. Yu Qianqiu smiled and clasped his fist at the two of them, then turned to the group of rogue cultivators. "Are you ready? I just borrowed 10 large flying mystic instruments from the shops of the 4 major families. It should be enough to send us there." Dongfang Chang'ao frowned. Xueqi said in a deep voice, "Yu Qianqiu, why are you here again?" "Ha!" Yu Qianqiu turned around and said, "Ze and I are both rogue cultivators, and we each received 100,000 high-grade spirit stones yesterday. Naturally, we have to go to the coast of East Sea to participate in the war according to the agreement between you and the rogue cultivators." Beauty of 100 Charms was surprised. "Yu Qianqiu, you and Ze are going to the coast of East Sea too? What about me?" Yu Qianqiu snickered. "You're not a rogue cultivator, and you didn't get any money, of course you have to stay here." He didn't tell her, although he was afraid that the secret would be leaked, and he also wanted to find a reason to dump her. With her around, there were many things that he couldn't do freely. In fact, he also didn't tell Ze, but she definitely wouldn't doubt his decision. "You want to dump me and leave me here alone?" The 100 Charm enchantress shouted in a delicate voice. Dongfang Chang'ao frowned. "Yu Qianqiu, the Cultivation Alliance didn't send you a decree. Why are you going there?" "That's not right." The Cultivation Alliance allocated 63,200,000 high-grade spirit stones, including me and Ze. There were 632 rogue cultivators outside the 100-flower palace. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and pointed at the masked rogue cultivators. "Although they didn't ask for my name, they didn't ask for theirs either. But they already gave me the money. Isn't it asking me to go too? Do they want me and Ze to wear masked clothes too? That's fine. Luckily I have a few more here." As he spoke, he really took out 2 masked clothes with the word Rogue Cultivator embroidered on them from his storage bag, threw one to Ze, and put it on in front of everyone. Ze looked at him with the clothes, and put on the masked clothes too. After the two of them put on, they immediately stood among the rogue cultivators. The leader of the masked rogue cultivators stretched out his hand and said, 632 rogue cultivators are here, elders. Please give us the pass so we can report to the Cultivation Alliance as soon as possible." Dongfang Chang'ao and Xueqi looked at each other. So Yu Qianqiu was waiting for them here. Just think about it, all the sects treated Yu Qianqiu as the representative of the rogue cultivators, but they didn't expect him to be a rogue cultivator too. In fact, let alone the sects, the two of them also neglected this point. This was bad. No one told these rogue cultivators that once they arrived at the coast of East Sea, they would be separated into different sections. They were going to be divided according to the method of distributing tasks after they arrived. If Yu Qianqiu brought them there, who among the sects would be able to poach them from his hands? This guy could beat or scold them at any time. Not to mention he brought so many loyal subordinates with him, he was even less afraid of anyone. It's over. All the sects were cheated of more than 60 million by him for nothing. "Yu Qianqiu, what are you trying to do?" Xueqi shouted with a livid face. "What am I trying to do?" Yu Qianqiu sneered, took off his mask and said coldly, "Of course I'm following the decree of the Cultivation Alliance, going to the coast of East Sea to participate in the battle." "Why? Did I say something wrong?" "You." Xueqi was so angry that he couldn't speak. If he really sent this guy over, the various sects would not be able to poach him and lose a large sum of money. It would be strange if they didn't settle the score with him and Dongfang Chang'ao later. Chapter 4:16. What's wrong with me? Yu Qianqiu patted his chest and said, "Everyone knows that I'm a man of my word. Since I've already accepted the money, I will never go back on my word. I will never be a villain who goes back on his word. As for this, you can rest assured. Even if we don't have the token, we will still barge our way through. We will not be intimidated by any obstacles." His words were clearly a threat. His meaning was clear. If you don't give me the token, Don't blame me for not warning you in advance if you run into any sects checking on us on the way and something unexpected happens. Xueqi was so angry that he laughed and said, "You're a man of your word? I wonder who would believe you. It seems like you've always been the one praising yourself. Whether you're a man of your word or not, it's not up to you to decide. It's up to others to judge you. F***CK. How dare you doubt my character?" Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow and said, "The world has many misunderstandings about me. If I don't say it out loud, who would know that I, Yu Qianqiu, am a man of my word? You're twisting words and forcing logic." Xueqi was about to refute him when Dongfang Chang'e waved an arm in front of him, stopping him from speaking any further. With his other hand, he took out a jade archive and tossed it to Yu Qianqiu, saying, "The token is here. Hurry up and report back." Xueqi was taken aback. He looked at Dongfang Chang'e in confusion, but the latter shook his head slightly. Yu Qianqiu caught the jade archive and tossed it to the masked rogue cultivator behind him. He glanced at the two of them and spat. "Damn it! I didn't expect to save an ingrate. If I had known this would happen, I would have just let Yan Bugue and the others kill him. Why would I want to interfere in this matter? I'll be at ease if they're all dead. It'll save me some trouble." Dongfang Chang'e and Xueqi's expressions changed. Although the other party's words were harsh, he did save their lives. Compared to the debt of saving their lives, one or two harsh words were really nothing. Therefore, the two of them did not say anything else. Seeing that there was no response from the other party and that he had obtained the pass, Yu Qianqiu could not be bothered to argue anymore. He took out a bunch of flying artifacts from his storage bag and distributed them to the masked loose cultivator. He kept 6 of them and kept the rest back. He said that he borrowed 10 of the best flying artifacts from the shops of the 4 great clans, but in fact, he spent a lot of money to make these 10 flying artifacts. Of course, when he said that he had spent a lot of money, he had used a lot of rare materials of his own, not a lot of spirit stones. Naturally, the cost of making it was completely free. The 4 great clans were too embarrassed to accept his money. However, they did obtain a lot of good materials during the making process. Long before the saber drawing assembly, he had a secret discussion with the head of the Jing clan, who specialized in making flying artifacts. Jing Feihong had agreed to help him make 10 flying artifacts that could carry 10,000 people at the same time, using the most secretive techniques from the Jing clan. Each artifact had to be able to carry at least 1,000 people. Even so, Yu Qianqiu's requirements were extremely strict. He wanted these 10 flying artifacts to not only have the best techniques, but also to be made of the most durable materials. Especially the outer shell, it had to be able to withstand an attack from an expert in the final stage of the Tribulation passing stage. At the very least, it had to be able to withstand an attack from an expert in the final stage of the Tribulation passing stage. Jing Feihong was shocked to hear this. It was reasonable to use the most durable materials, but why did they need to make the shell so sturdy? Flying artifacts were used to carry people. Who would use a flying artifact to fight an expert in the final stage of the Tribulation passing stage? Jing Feihong thought about it, shook his head, and smiled bitterly. He said, "Perhaps we can find some rare materials to make a small flying artifact. However, where can we find so many good materials to make 10 such large flying artifacts? Moreover, they have to be able to withstand an attack from an expert in the final stage of the Tribulation passing stage. The Jing clan is really helpless. You don't have to worry about this. I will provide the materials. What do you think of using this to make them?" Yu Qianqiu said as he secretly stuffed something into Jing Feihong's hands. Jing Feihong took a look at it and was instantly shocked. He said, "Nether iron." The Jing clan was good at making artifacts, so they were naturally better at identifying these things. They immediately recognized what it was. It was actually the world's rare nether iron. If you use nether iron to make them, they should be able to withstand an attack from an expert in the final stage of the Tribulation passing stage, right? Yu Qianqiu asked this because he wasn't too sure. He had never fought with an expert in the final stage of the Tribulation passing stage because he knew that the final stage and the middle stage of the Tribulation passing stage were 2 completely different concepts. He had never dared to try fighting someone like that. Being beaten up was a small matter. At worst, he could just get back up after falling down. The important thing was that big boss you couldn't afford to lose face like that. Absolutely no problem. Unless the other party has some powerful artifact. Jing Feihong held the item in his hands and nodded as he looked at it. Then he asked suspiciously, even if we use nether iron to make them, the materials needed to make 10 ships are not something that can be easily obtained. Mister, how can you find so much nether iron? You don't have to worry about this. Just tell me how much you need. Yu Qianqiu patted his chest confidently. This. Jing Feihong thought for a while and said, the amount of nether iron needed to make 10 ships, based on the storage bags in 3 rooms, would be at least 8 bags. That much? Yu Qianqiu was shocked. Jing Feihong nodded and said, if we use all of them with nether iron and add on the other things that we need, 8 bags would barely be enough. If we only need to use some in the crucial areas, 1 bag would be enough. Forget it. Yu Qianqiu waved his hand and gritted his teeth. You don't have to worry about the materials. I'll gather 10 bags for you as soon as possible. Use all of them with nether iron. They have to be sturdy and durable. Jing Feihong watched him leave, dumbfounded. He didn't know if he would really be able to get 10 bags of nether iron. Without another word, Yu Qianqiu returned to Utopia on the same day. Back when he was digging the tunnels in the Hades cave, he had collected quite a lot of nether iron. Putting them all together, there were barely 3 bags. Chen Feng had even cried and begged him to keep at least half of them. He said that once he figured out a way to refine nether iron, he would let the entire Utopia army use nether iron artifacts. Originally, Yu Qianqiu didn't want to keep them, but after hearing what Chen Feng said, he was tempted. He had no choice but to make another trip to the Hades cave. He spent close to a day digging out a large tumor in the intestine-like Hades cave before finally getting 10 bags. The next day, when he really handed the 10 bags of nether iron to Jing Feihong gulped hard. He couldn't believe that this was real. After coming back to his senses, he immediately promised, I'll definitely create those 10 artifacts as soon as possible. Yu Qianqiu recalled that Chen Feng had said that refining nether iron was very troublesome, so he asked Jing Feihong, it might be more troublesome to refine nether iron. Does your Jing family have a way? Mister, you don't have to worry about this. My Jing family relies on refining artifacts, so we naturally have a set of secret refining techniques that won't be leaked, Jing Feihong said confidently. Yu Qianqiu's eyes lit up, and he immediately became interested. He asked, what secret technique? Can you give me a set of recipes so that I can broaden my horizons? This. Jing Feihong said hesitantly, this is the Jing family's foundation. The secret refining technique has always been kept by the Elders Guild. If you want to take it out, you have to get the Elders Guild's approval. I'm afraid it'll be difficult to take it out in a short period of time. Haha. Don't worry, I'm just asking casually, Yu Qianqiu said with a smile. In his heart, however, he was thinking that he would get it sooner or later, so he couldn't push them too hard. He had to wait for them to finish the 10 flying artifacts first. Just like that, Yu Qianqiu waited for news of the Jing family's flying artifacts. The day before yesterday, someone from the Jing family's shop came to say that the artifacts would be quietly delivered to the 100 Flowers Valley the next night. So the next day, after the masked loose cultivator received the spirit stones from Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Yuan, he delayed his departure to the next day. The reason was that Yu Qianqiu wanted to wait until he got the artifacts before he left. A flying artifact could carry 1,000 people, so it was more than enough to carry 600 people. But after all, it was the first test. For the sake of speed and safety, Yu Qianqiu decided to scatter the 600 people. First, the smaller the size of the flying artifact, the faster it could fly. Second, if there was an accident, they wouldn't be killed all at once. On the surface, they were masked loose cultivators, but in reality, they were the 6 captains of the special forces. They threw the artifacts in their hands at the same time, and in the blink of an eye, 6 black flying artifacts with 2 sharp ends and round waists appeared in the sky. 2 pairs of legs stretched out from the bottom, and the 6 artifacts landed on the ground side by side. When the sun rose, it was supposed to be the time for everything to wake up and be full of life. But when these 6 enormous objects appeared, they immediately made everyone feel an inexplicable pressure. Their bodies were as black as ink, with 2 sharp ends. It was hard to tell which side was the head and which was the tail. The smooth, streamlined design made people's hearts palpitate under the sun's touch. It made everyone feel like they were facing 6 monsters. Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Yuan looked at each other. They knew that this was a flying artifact, but they had never seen such a flying artifact before. It was a little strange. The allure beauty looked at Purple Dress and saw that she was also curious. Clearly, she had never seen it before. The loose cultivators were also sizing them up. In the end, their gazes focused on the abdomen of a few flying artifacts. They saw that there were words and strange symbols like Utopia 001 engraved on them. Everyone knew the words Utopia at the front, but they had never seen the symbols at the back. Yu Qianchou pinched his chin, and his eyebrows twitched. He seemed to be a little proud. These artifacts had abandoned the flashy designs of dragons and beasts, and only chose a single streamlined design. It looked simple, but in fact, it was a combination of some of the design concepts he knew from his previous life. The streamlined design could reduce wind resistance, and only then could the flight speed be maximized. There was no point in having messy designs and engravings. The key was that it was practical. From Utopia 001 to Utopia 010, there were a total of 10 flying artifacts, and they were all named after Utopia. The one in front of him was 6 of them, and the remaining one was the one he had just put into his storage bag. Yu Qianchou rubbed his hands together excitedly. He couldn't wait to try out the flying magic tool that had integrated the advanced concepts of his past life. In any case, he couldn't return to his past life, so he could only sit on this thing to reminisce. Chapter 417. Beside him, the temptress suddenly pulled him back. She glared at him and asked, "Are you really going to leave me here by myself?" "About that." Yu Qianchou chuckled. "You're not a loose cultivator, and you didn't take any money either. Why do you have to join in the fun?" As he said that, he turned to the 2 team leaders and the 6 company commanders and said, "Follow me." The 8 of them followed Yu Qianchou towards a flying transcendent artifact. Ziyi's eyes brightened, and she followed without hesitation. The temptress was taken aback. Suddenly she giggled and said, "So what if I didn't take any money? I don't want it." She smiled coquettishly and followed after them. Yu Qianchou stomped his feet and turned around. He was speechless. He had never met such a thick-skinned woman before. He then led the group onto the flying transcendent artifact. Everyone looked around. The interior was decorated with many fluorescent stones for illumination. Although it was empty, the tiles were brand new. Clearly they were new. Yu Qianchou took out a jade archive and examined it. He then smiled and walked to one end. He stomped on a square beneath his feet, and immediately, they heard the buzzing sound of a spring turning from the bottom. Everyone's eyes suddenly lit up. The shields on their left, right, front, and top were retracted with a whoosh. 8 transparent crystal windows appeared before everyone's eyes, allowing them to see the scenery outside. Outside, Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan were startled by the movement of this strange object. Why did it suddenly grow eyes? They then saw Yu Qianchou and the others standing in front of the transparent crystal at the front of the cone, gesturing to the outside world. These 8 windows allow the user of the flying transcendent artifact to observe the situation outside. They don't have to be exposed to the elements outside. If something unexpected happens, they can close the windows at any time. Yu Qianchou pointed at the circle of transparent crystal windows as he introduced them. He then stomped on the square beneath his feet. Everyone's vision darkened, and the 8 windows were sealed again. She stepped on it again, and the window opened again. While everyone was still in shock, Yu Qianchou stepped on the other squares under his feet. The sound of springs rang out, and a wide and thick seat rose up behind his buttocks. He sat down calmly and pointed at the platform in front of him that was filled with spirit stones. He smiled and said, "This is the place to replenish the spirit stones. The pilot can sit here and easily control the entire flying mystic instrument." Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, Yu Qianchou stood up and put away all these things before entering the spacious cabin. Everyone looked in the direction of his finger and saw that on the cabin floor, there was a square every 2 meters. It was obvious that there was something special about it. Sure enough, Yu Qianchou walked to the side and stomped on it. Another thick chair rose up. He sat down and touched the small hand valve on the side of his body. The back of the chair could be adjusted very comfortably. Everyone was speechless as they watched. He then pulled down one of the hand valves on the cabin wall, and a small transparent window appeared before everyone's eyes. After Yu Qianchou closed it again, he stood up and said with a smile, "Those sitting on the side can observe the situation outside through this window." After demonstrating once, he quickly made 8 copies of the Jade Archive in his hand and handed them to the 2 team leaders and the 6 company commanders. He said, "I've done it once. You should understand the gist of it by now. Some of the control methods in here are more or less the same. Just take a look and you'll understand." As he spoke, he suddenly shouted in a deep voice, "Each of the 6 companies will have 1 flying transcendent artifact. The 2 team leaders will each be responsible for 3. Keep in touch with each other. Once we're airborne, immediately discuss and form a battle formation. The target is the coast of the Eastern Sea. Execute the order immediately." As soon as they received the order, the 8 of them immediately perked up and responded in unison, "Yes." Then, they quickly exited the mysterious flying transcendent artifact. Ze and the Temptress were so shocked that they felt like they were dreaming. They saw Yu Qianqiu walk to the rear cabin with his hands behind his back and pull open a door. He then walked in while shaking his head. "Is there something new in there?" The 2 girls looked at each other and quickly followed him in. Inside the small space, there was a large bed and a recliner. Yu Qianqiu activated a mechanism, and a large protective shell suddenly appeared above his head, letting in the bright sunlight. Then, they saw him leisurely leaning against the recliner, squinting his eyes as he basked in the sun. He looked very relaxed. "There's a bed and recliner on the flying transcendent artifact?" The 2 girls looked at the small space in a daze. Suddenly, the flying transcendent artifact shook. The Temptress blinked her eyes and quickly walked to the transparent crystal window. The 6 flying transcendent artifacts, including this one, slowly rose into the air and adjusted their direction. Below them, Dongfang Chang'ao and Xueqi had seen many things in their lives, but they had never seen such a strange flying transcendent artifact. They watched as the 6 flying transcendent artifacts formed a formation in the air, with 1 in the lead and 2 on each side. The one Yu Qianqiu was on was sandwiched in the middle of the formation, becoming the center point of the formation. The 6 flying transcendent artifacts adjusted their direction and quickly flew towards the east. They could vaguely see Yu Qianqiu lying on a recliner and waving at them through the transparent window at the rear of the flying transcendent artifact in the middle. "This kid has finally grown up. This is going to be difficult." Dongfang Chang'ao shook his head and smiled bitterly. He turned to the people beside him and said, "They came prepared. The coast of the East Sea is going to be lively." Xueqi said with a solemn face, "We have to quickly spread the news and let the sects prepare." The 2 of them looked at each other and quickly flew into the 100 Flowers Valley. Ze and the Temptress were leaning against the transparent crystal window, chattering like 2 little girls. Their faces were filled with excitement, and they would occasionally point at the white clouds floating by outside as they chatted and laughed, as if they had never seen them before. Yu Qianqiu lazily turned over on the soft recliner and continued to sleep. The Temptress turned around and looked, then walked over with a smile. She squeezed her butt onto the recliner and poked a certain someone's waist with her sharp index finger. Yu Qianqiu let out a cry and sat up. He rubbed his waist and glared at her angrily. He shouted, "Are you done yet? What do you want?" The Temptress wasn't angry. She looked around and thought to herself, "Thank goodness I'm thick-skinned enough to come here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to see such a flying instrument." Thinking of this, she winked at Yu Qianqiu seductively. Yu Qianqiu shuddered and immediately lost his temper. He wanted to move away from the Temptress, but the Temptress grabbed his hand and asked, "Let me ask you, was this flying instrument really made by the Jing clan of the 4 major clans? Are you trying to seduce me?" Yu Qianqiu struggled, but he couldn't get rid of the Temptress. He smiled bitterly and said, "Palace Leader Yi, if you have something to say, just say it. Don't pull me, okay?" Ze turned around and glanced at the 2 of them. She was already used to their actions. She turned around and pressed her face against the transparent window. Her eyes were pure as she looked at the clouds of different shapes that were being thrown far away. The Allure Beauty glanced at Ze and bit her alluring red lips with her silver teeth. She grabbed onto Yu Qianqiu and whispered in his ear, "Don't call me Palace Lord Yi in the future. My real name is Yi Kun. You can just call me Yi Kun." Her voice was like a devil's voice, very alluring. "Call me Yi Kun? What a mess." Yu Qianqiu's face twitched. He rejected the temptation and said, "Don't give me that. Don't you just want to know where this flying instrument came from?" The Temptress retracted her hand, blinked her eyes, and said in a tone that seemed both real and fake, You even saw through this? That's right. I just want to know. With such a comfortable structure, my pink sect will also buy one. Yu Qianchou escaped from the temptress' hands. He turned around and sat on the bed. He waved his hand and said, "The Jing clan made it. You can buy it from them. I'm just afraid that you can't afford it." "How many spiritual stones do I need?" the temptress asked. "Once you figure out what this flying magic artifact is made of, you won't ask anymore." Yu Qianchou sneered. The temptress didn't pester him anymore. She knocked around the cabin and thought about it. At the coast of the East Sea, in an uninhabited courtyard, people from different sects were sitting together again. After receiving the news from Dongfang Chang'ao and Qiu Wuyuan, they all looked at each other. A group of people wanted to poach Yu Qianchou's people, but in the end, they were cheated by Yu Qianchou. Bai Shan of the four major families sneered. Didn't he know what kind of person Yu Qianchou was? Every time he saw something good, he would want to take a bite. Now, not only did he not get anything, but he also broke his teeth. "We can't let that brat have it." Zhu Xianxian of the Daluo sect suddenly shouted with a dark face. The group of people all had mocking expressions on their faces. It seemed like this guy was the one who came up with the idea. If Yu Qianchou found out about it, who knew who would be the one to blame? However, they believed that it couldn't be kept a secret. Everyone looked at Bai Shan, who was smiling coldly. With the relationship between the four major families and Yu Qianchou, it was possible that Yu Qianchou already knew about it. Maybe Yu Qianchou had personally led his people here to settle the score with the Daluo sect. After all, no matter how arrogant Yu Qianchou was, he wouldn't go against the entire Chinese cultivation world. It was very likely that he would go after the Daluo sect. Seeing that everyone was silent, Zhu Xianxian looked around and said, "Does no one want to take back the spiritual stones that belong to your sect? Are we going to be cheated by him just like that?" Yuan Xueqi of the Six Paths Demon sect chuckled and said, "How? Snatch it or trick it? Do you think that we can force him to hand it over by issuing a decree in the name of the Cultivation Alliance?" "Yuan Xueqi, you have a good idea." Zhu Xianxian's eyes lit up. He slapped his thigh and said loudly, "We will issue a decree in the name of the Cultivation Alliance." Does he dare to go against the entire Cultivation Alliance? Yuan Xueqi rolled his eyes and sneered, "Zhu Xianxian, don't talk nonsense. What do you mean my idea is good? If you want to do it, do it. Don't drag me into it." As he spoke, he stood up and said, "The war is imminent. I advise everyone to make a decision carefully. Don't let the Cultivation Alliance cause trouble first. I can't make the decision on this matter. I'll have to ask the consecrators in the sect. I'll take my leave first. Goodbye." Only the people in charge of communication were present. The real experts were not present. Yuan Xueqi, your Six Paths Demon sect is also a big sect. Is there a need to be so afraid of trouble? Zhu Xianxian's face sank. Yuan Xueqi, who was walking out, turned around and stared at Zhu Xianxian. He shook his head and said with a bitter smile, "Zhu Xianxian, some things should be forgotten. There's no need to take it to heart. Sigh. You guys continue the discussion. In short, the Six Paths Demon sect will follow the final decision of the Cultivation Alliance." Then he turned around and said, "I almost forgot. I have to quickly order the hidden sentries in the sect. There's nothing that kid doesn't dare to do. I hope he doesn't cause any accidents when he runs into him." The group of people watched him disappear outside the door. Bai Shan also stood up and cupped his hands at everyone. "The four families are the same as the Six Paths Demon sect. We will follow the final decision of the Cultivation Alliance. I have something to do. I'll take my leave first." With one or two people taking the lead, the other sects found excuses to leave. In the end, Zhu Xianxian was left alone with a gloomy expression. A good discussion had failed just like that. Leaving the two girls in the room, Yu Qianchou opened the cabin door and walked out. He then closed it again. More than 100 people were sitting neatly in 2 rows in the cabin. When they heard the voice, they immediately stood up and saluted. Yu Qianchou signaled everyone to sit down. He then asked the leader of the team, "How's the flying artifact? Are you used to it?" "Very good. It's better than all the ones I've used before." The leader was a little excited. As the two were talking, the flying artifact suddenly slowed down. The two of them swayed. The leader suddenly turned around and shouted, "Company leader, what's going on?" "Leader, someone stopped the flying artifact of the leader of the second team." The leader of the first team who was driving the artifact replied loudly. The leader flashed to the front and seemed to be communicating with the people of the second team. Yu Qianqiu walked over slowly with an expressionless face. Looking through the transparent window, he saw a dozen people in a small flying artifact blocking his way. He snorted coldly and said, "Let's ask who stopped us first." The leader nodded and quickly got it through telepathy. He then reported, "It's a patrol team formed by a few small sects of the Cultivation Alliance. They want us to show our pass token." Yu Qianqiu's expression softened a little. He nodded and said, "I'm doing my job. I'll cooperate with them." The leader took the order, opened the cabin door, and flew out. After showing the pass token, he negotiated with those people. Not only did those people not leave, but they also followed the leader. After the leader flashed in, he asked, "They said they've heard of your name for a long time. They want to pay you a visit." After coming out of the special forces, there was a rule that the title leader could not be used outside. "Ha! Let them in." Yu Qianqiu was stunned. The leader went to the cabin door and let more than a dozen people in. As soon as these people from the small sects came in, they immediately saw more than 100 masked people staring at them. They suddenly felt a little uneasy and nervous. It was said that these people were all experts of the Tribulation stage. "This is the Mr. Yu you want to see." The leader waved his hand and said. Yu Qianqiu laughed and walked over. He smiled amiably and said, "Everyone, you've worked hard. I'm Yu Qianqiu. I don't know what I can do for you." Although Yu Qianqiu's reputation was not very good, his history of struggle had long been something that the young disciples of the various sects talked about. Many grassroots disciples dreamed of becoming someone like Yu Qianqiu. When Yan Bugue brought people to challenge him, Yu Qianqiu killed his opponent with one strike. Although the young disciples of the various sects did not see it with their own eyes, it was spread like wildfire. Especially when he said, "So what if I'm famous or not? One strike is enough." This made the grassroots disciples of the various sects worship him crazily. Coincidentally, these people were sent here to investigate suspicious cultivators. When they saw the 6 extraordinary flying artifacts, they thought it was someone from a large sect. They did not expect to meet a legendary grassroots idol. So one of them mustered up the courage to ask for a meeting with the leader. The leader wanted to refuse, but he remembered that Yu Qianqiu was here. It was not good for him to make a decision for him, so he came to ask for instructions. Who knew that Yu Qianqiu would agree without hesitation? The young disciples thought that Yu Qianqiu would be like those people from the large sects and just say a few perfunctory words to them. Who knew that he would be so easy to talk to? The group of disciples from the small sects immediately relaxed a lot. They all bowed and said, "I've heard of Mr.'s great name for a long time. We've come to pay our respects. No need to be so polite. We're all friends. If you continue to be so polite, I won't be happy." Yu Qianqiu said, pretending to be angry. "Do you also think that I'm like the rumors outside, a scum or a madman in the cultivation world?" The dozen or so people were seen through by him. They all scratched their heads and smiled awkwardly. One of them mustered up the courage to reply, "To be honest, mister, we were indeed a little worried before. Now that we've met mister, we know that those were all rumors." "Yes, I believe that what you said is the truth. Other than being a trustworthy person, I also like people who tell the truth the most." Yu Qianqiu patted his shoulder kindly and sighed. "But rumors are terrible. Maybe after many years, when your cultivation is successful, you will inevitably encounter similar rumors. I hope that you can treat it with a normal heart. Don't be like me. Sometimes, when I can't hold it in anymore, I get into a fight. It's clearly something I'm in the right, but the more I fight, the worse my reputation becomes. Sigh. I'm a good example. I hope that you can learn from it. This is my advice to you as a person who has been through it." The group of people fell into deep thought when they heard this. The disciple who was patted on the shoulder was a little agitated. "From what I see, someone is clearly jealous of Mr., and that's why they purposely spread rumors to slander you. But so what? If I had Mr.'s ability, I definitely wouldn't forgive anyone who dares to talk about me like that. That's too shallow, too shallow." Yu Qianqiu shook his shoulder and warned him, "Don't learn from me. If that day comes, you must endure when you need to. You must know that if you take a step back, everything will be fine. If you endure for a while, everything will be fine. Don't be impulsive, understand?" Ze and the Temptress, who were in the rear cabin, had already opened the cabin door to see what was going on. Now that they heard Yu Qianqiu's tireless and sincere words, the Temptress's expression was indescribably strange. Seeing that the group of young cultivators were all silent, Yu Qianqiu patted the disciple's shoulder again and laughed. "It's fate that we can meet. Let's not talk about unhappy things. This is my new flying artifact. It's also unique in the cultivation world. Dongfang Chong Ao from Fuxian Island and Qiu Wu Yuan from 10,000 Demons wanted to come up and have a look, but I coaxed them away. Why don't you all take some time to look around? Let me be the host." Hearing that such a famous person didn't even have the qualifications to come here, these people were indeed eager to try. However, after looking at each other, they all bowed to Yu Qianqiu. The disciple cupped his hands and said, "We appreciate Mr.'s kindness, but we have been ordered to come here. We don't dare to delay for too long, so we bid farewell to Mr. Since you all have important matters to attend to, I won't disturb you anymore." Yu Qianqiu thought for a while and turned to Team Leader 1. "We didn't prepare any greeting gifts. Let's give each of you 10 top-grade spirit stones." "No need, no need." The group of people quickly waved their hands. But Team Leader 1 didn't say anything. He resolutely carried out the order and stuffed a handful of spirit stones into everyone's hands. The group of people held the spirit stones and looked at each other, not knowing what to do. Yu Qianqiu smiled amiably and said, "Take it all. Take it as a greeting gift. Take it as a witness to our reunion." Hearing this, the group couldn't refuse and could only thank him. After they left, the 6 flying artifacts began to speed up. Yu Qianqiu was still waving at them from the cabin door. More than 10 people stood on the small flying artifacts and watched as Yu Qianqiu and the rest disappeared into the distance. They sighed as they looked at the spirit stones in their hands. With Yu Qianqiu's current status in the cultivation world, he didn't even pay attention to the sect masters of a sect. Yet, he looked favorably upon these useless grassroots disciples. Furthermore, he patiently encouraged them with kind words and even gifted them with a large amount of spirit stones. The disciple who had close contact with Yu Qianqiu turned to look at the crowd and said, "All the sects say that Mr. Yu is a scum and a lunatic. I hope that the people who say these things can be as scum and as crazy as Mr. Yu. Then our cultivation world will be peaceful." Another person sighed. "It's obvious that Mr. Yu is in the limelight. All the sects are obviously working together to suppress him." Sigh. Similar things don't only happen in the cultivation world. We've seen such things in all the sections. Be careful with your words. We can only say these things here. Don't spread it back to the sect. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble. What are you afraid of? Don't tell me someone will tell on us. Sigh. Mr. Yu is a good person. A group of disciples who didn't know the truth were bored. They were chattering and vindicating Yu Qianqiu in a small area. It just so happened that the journey was lonely. He didn't expect to become a teacher who spread the truth again. Yu Qianqiu was in a good mood. He said to Team Leader 1, "If we encounter similar checks again, invite all the young disciples from the various sects who have low cultivation bases. If they are that old, forget it. Those old and stubborn people have already set their minds. It's hard to change them. Don't waste my breath. Just deal with it." Understood. Team Leader 1 nodded. Just as Yu Qianqiu was about to turn and leave, he suddenly thought of something and snorted. "There is one exception. If you encounter people from Daluo sect, tell Team Leader 2 to first send people to cripple them. Then, don't let any of them go. Capture them all. I want to give Daluo sect a greeting gift." After giving his instructions, Yu Qianqiu returned to the rear cabin with his hands behind his back. When he entered, he saw Ze looking at him strangely. The allure beauty covered her mouth and giggled. "Mr. Yu is indeed a kind person. He's the model for all sects to learn from." "I knew you were a bad woman." Yu Qianqiu rolled his eyes at her. He said to Ze with a serious expression, "Some people's words cannot be trusted easily, especially those who speak ill of others behind their backs." Hearing this, the allure beauty laughed even more happily. She continued, especially those who speak nonsense and lie without blinking. You can't trust the words of these people. Mr. Yu, do you think I'm right? Haha. Chapter 4:18. A good man doesn't bicker with a woman. Yu Qianqiu threw down these words and confidently returned to his chair to rest. The allure beauty smiled and slowly retreated to the bed. She pulled over the thick blanket and curled up inside. She closed her eyes and looked satisfied, as if she had found what she had been looking for many years. The bed was big enough and Ze sat down cross-legged in a corner. Just as he calmed down, Yu Qianqiu, who was pretending to sleep, suddenly discovered that something was wrong with his dantian. He could not help but look inside himself and saw that his nascent soul had actually stopped breathing, and the red and black spheres revolving around it were speeding up. Moreover, it was getting faster and faster, stirring up the quintessential essence in his dantian. The quintessential essence was stirred up like a tornado, and as it spiraled, it seemed to show signs of becoming thicker. Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes and stood up. A thought popped into his head. Was he going to make a breakthrough again? The two women were also alerted by his movements. Seeing his dignified expression, they looked at each other. Just as the allure beauty was about to ask something, Yu Qianqiu said, "Ze, protect me. My cultivation is about to break through to the middle stage of nascent soul. Don't let anyone disturb me." He sat down cross-legged on the deck and closed his eyes to carefully observe the movement in his dantian. Ze's expression became serious. She knew that when a cultivator was about to make a breakthrough, they couldn't be disturbed. If they missed this opportunity, it would be hard for them to make any more progress. She immediately moved to his side and looked around vigilantly. When her gaze swept past the allure beauty, she was actually on guard. After the allure beauty saw what the two were doing, she felt a bit sad. Yu Qianqiu subconsciously called Ze to protect him and didn't call her. It was obvious who the two women were in his heart. Especially Ze's vigilant gaze, it made her even more confused. It turned out that she hadn't really integrated with the two of them. Perhaps they were subconsciously on guard against her. "I'll go guard outside the door in case someone comes in and disturbs you." The allure beauty smiled awkwardly. Purple Dress nodded solemnly. She was on high alert and even pulled the handbrake to have the protective shell cover the transparent window again. The 100-charm beauty lightly sighed in her heart, and she smiled as she left. "If I don't leave now, then I'm afraid I'll become Ze's main target. Is there a need for that?" The movement in his dantian made Yu Qianqiu a little uneasy. The true essence in his dantian was stirred up into a tornado. He had never heard of such a phenomenon before. He also knew that his cultivation method was different from other cultivators. Therefore, he did not have any experience to learn from. However, there was one thing that was beyond doubt. Only when one's true essence became more substantial would it represent that one's cultivation would become more profound. Just like the protective aura released by a transcending tribulation stage expert, only when the true essence was thick to the point that the protective aura released would be hard to break. If it was at the soul formation stage, then the protective aura released would naturally be even more difficult. It was clear that at this moment, the true essence in his dantian was spinning rapidly. It was trying to reach the next level. However, it was like there was no place for it to borrow strength from. It spun in the air, and like a bone scraper, it swept across the walls of his dantian. Yu Qianqiu was in so much pain that he trembled. He clenched his teeth and endured it. That damned nascent soul was sitting peacefully between the red and black beads. There was no reaction at all. How could this be? Ze was shocked. She was also a nascent soul stage cultivator. Although it was uncomfortable, it shouldn't be like this. Increasing the resistance and slowing down the speed should reduce the pain. Yu Qianqiu was in so much pain that his whole body was covered in sweat. He bit his lips so hard that they bled. When he could no longer endure it, this thought suddenly appeared in his mind. Ze saw that he had bitten his lips so hard that they bled. She trembled with fear, but she didn't know how to help him. She just stood there anxiously. Right now, she even wanted to go out and pull the beauty of 100 Charms in to ask her if she knew what was going on. In her anxiousness, she suddenly saw a purple spirit stone appear in each of Yu Qianqiu's hands. The spirit stone's luster gradually dimmed in his palms. The spiritual energy within it was obviously being absorbed. Ze was slightly stunned. She had never used any spirit stones before, but it didn't mean that she didn't know what a purple spirit stone meant. He actually had the legendary top-grade spirit stone? Ze forgot to be anxious. She watched in surprise as he threw away one spirit stone and took another. This big liar! Who knew how many more secrets he was hiding? The rich spiritual energy in the top-grade spirit stone poured into his dantian. Finally, the rotation of the true essence slowed down a little. His dantian became bulging. However, the two damn beads didn't slow down at all. They stirred the true essence in the thick spiritual energy. The beads' rotation speed, the resistance of the spiritual energy, and the limited pressure of the dantian. Under these three forces, the true essence was quickly compressed and gradually became thick. It really worked. Yu Qianqiu was overjoyed. However, once the true essence was compressed, there was more space left, and the resistance of compression was smaller. It was difficult to continue to compress it further. Without hesitation, Yu Qianqiu absorbed the spiritual energy again. He endured the swelling pain of his dantian and sucked crazily. He desperately increased the pressure of the true essence. When the true essence was compressed a little thicker, he poured spiritual energy into his dantian to fill it, until the water-like true essence turned into a substance like silk cloth. It was milky white and delicate, and its volume shrank by 100 times. Suddenly, the nascent soul that had stopped breathing suddenly spat out a big bubble, as if it had choked on water in a river. What it spat out was nothing else but a mass of milky white true essence. It merged with the milky white that had been compressed just now. It was as if this thing was blocking his airways, causing him to be unable to breathe. As such, the dual jewels protecting his body had to lend him a helping hand, causing his entire dantian to become restless, and now he was finally able to breathe. In an instant, the whole dantian quieted down. The two beads' rotation speed returned to their usual state of protecting the nascent soul. The nascent soul that could breathe took a deep breath. The rich spiritual energy was sucked in. It rotated in its abdomen and spat out a silk-like white true essence. Yu Qianqiu's whole body shook. He let out a weak moan in comfort. A smile appeared on his face. He finally broke through. Ze also let out a sigh of relief. She also saw that he had broken through. As soon as Yu Qianqiu opened his eyes, he saw Ziyi's suspicious face coming over. He was startled and said, "What are you doing? Are you trying to molest me?" Ziyi pointed at the light purple spirit stone in his hand that had not finished absorbing the spiritual energy. She asked, "Do you really have no money? I heard that this top-grade spirit stone is very valuable." Yu Qianqiu looked down. Although he had already absorbed enough spiritual energy, he still forcefully absorbed the remaining spiritual energy. The spirit stone in his hand immediately became a dead gray. No one could tell that it was a top-grade spirit stone. Then he swept all the dried-up spirit stones on the ground into his storage pouch, got up and patted his butt. "Of course I'm short of money. Don't look down on me because I have a few top-quality spirit stones in my hands. They were given to me by my master to use when I cultivate and advance. I can't just throw away the things that my master told me. Do I have to show off to everyone? Hey! This top-grade spirit stone was given to me by my master. My master has a top-grade spirit stone. If such a good thing were to be known, what do you think the consequences would be?" Ze frowned and nodded solemnly. She said, "It's very likely that someone with ulterior motives will target you. You're really smart. Not bad. This is why I don't let others see it. I'm worried about others, but I don't need to be on guard against you," Yu Qianqiu said. He put his mouth next to Ziyi's ear and whispered, "That's why I asked you to protect me. I didn't ask her to. Do you know why now?" Ziyi heard this and nodded as if nothing had happened. In fact, her face was full of joy and she could not hide it even if she wanted to. When one's cultivation was breaking through, it was best for the most trusted person to be the protector. Choosing her. It turned out that Yu Qianqiu trusted her more. Yu Qianqiu took the opportunity to breathe in the faint fragrance of a virgin. He smacked his lips and found that it was slightly painful. Only then did he realize that he had bitten his lips. Thus, he let out a puddle of water. Under Ziyi's careful guidance, he washed the blood on his mouth. The allure beauty leaned on the outside and looked at the more than 100 people. There was no joy or sorrow on her face. She was lost in her thoughts. The cabin door suddenly opened. Ze poked her head out and smiled. The 100 Charms beauty was startled. She turned around and went in, only to see Yu Qianqiu standing there with his legs crossed. The protective shell on top of his head had been opened again, and the sky outside was already filled with stars. You broke through? The allure beauty walked to Yu Qianqiu and asked with a smile. There was a bitterness hidden in her smile. It seemed that this question was a bit unnecessary. If he did not break through, it would be strange if he could be so carefree. Yu Qianqiu smiled proudly and answered her in this way. The allure beauty did not ask any more questions. She still had a seductive smile on her face. She casually returned to the bed and continued to curl up in the thick blanket. She suddenly felt that she should have a good sleep. Perhaps her mood would be better tomorrow. The stars in the night sky were so brilliant. They were so deep, beautiful, and enchanting. However, they did not make her open her eyes for a while. She, who had been meditating and resting for many years, actually fell asleep quietly. The next day, the 6 flying artifacts in the sky were the first to bear the light of the rising sun. Lying on the chair, Yu Qianqiu still felt that it was dazzling with his eyes closed. He tilted his head to look. Ze was meditating at the corner of the bed. Her expression was solemn. The blue velvet blanket on the side was half wrapped around a beautiful body. The red muslin had been rolled up at some point, and 2 extremely seductive jade legs were quietly resting on the blanket. The half-rolled-up blue velvet hooked onto the 2 jade legs, making the 2 thighs appear even more white and creamy. The worst thing was that a certain person did not know how to restrain himself when he slept. Although he was wearing underwear, he did not know how to cover his private parts. I have sinned, I have sinned. Sex is emptiness. Emptiness is sex. Yu Qianqiu was speechless. He could only recite the Sex Sutra 10 times in his heart. He turned his head and forced himself to face the dazzling sunlight. He shouted in his heart, "Eyesight! Blind my eyes with that stab." Chapter 419. The 6 flying artifacts sped across the sky and did not stop at all, but there were exceptions. Team 2 followed Yu Qianqiu's instructions and invited all the young disciples who were being interrogated by the Cultivation Alliance to Utopia No. 1 to accept Yu Qianqiu's ideological reform. However, Yu Qianqiu had a bad reputation, and some disciples were really afraid. They did not want to go, but they could not stand the other party's warm invitation. After meeting Yu Qianqiu, they were instantly touched by Yu Qianqiu's spring breeze-like warmth. After receiving the greeting gifts, they regretted listening to the rumors. In Yu Qianqiu's words, this was called moving with emotion and understanding with reason. Of course, that was a greeting gift. The sect set up many similar interrogation points everywhere, and then set up a communication matrix within a certain range. Naturally, this was to make it convenient for them to report to the Cultivation Alliance in time if they discovered anything suspicious. Therefore, the Cultivation Alliance received the news that Yu Qianqiu's 6 flying artifacts were closing in. The interrogation points asked, "Did Yu Qianqiu and the others cooperate with the interrogation? Did they cause any trouble?" What surprised the various sects was that the replies from many of the interrogations all said, "Yu Qianqiu actively cooperated with the interrogations. His attitude was very good, and there were no signs of him causing trouble at all." Accidents were accidents, but not causing trouble was a good thing. The sects that had participated in the poaching sighed in relief. Daluo sect had instructed their disciples to be on guard. If they encountered Yu Qianqiu and his attitude was not good, they must tolerate it as much as they could, lest Yu Qianqiu take the opportunity to cause trouble. But after receiving such news, Zhu Xianxian was relieved. It seemed that Yu Qianqiu did not dare to go against the entire Cultivation Alliance. At least he knew what was good for him. When the Daluo sect disciples received the warning from the sect, they were all terrified. Everyone knew that Yu Qianqiu had a deep grudge with the Daluo sect. They had clashed with each other again and again. Even the sect master's son was killed by that bastard. What else could he not do? It was said that he had brought more than 600 cultivators at the crossing calamity stage with him. What should he do? Zhao Chong was an early-stage tribulation passing elder of the Daluo sect. He was usually by the side of Luo Kuan, one of the top experts of the Daluo sect. Now that he had been sent to a checkpoint of the Daluo sect, it was truly a waste of his talents. In this battle, Luo Kuan and several experts in the late tribulation passing stage had come to help the Daluo sect. He could be considered the #1 figure among the people from the Daluo sect. After receiving Zhu Xianxian's report about Yu Qianzhou, Luo Kuan ordered his men to calculate Yu Qianzhou's route and sent his trusted aide, Zhao Chong, to the place where Yu Qianzhou must pass. The purpose was simple. Put aside the past and try to restrain the disciples from clashing with Yu Qianzhou at this time. Otherwise, they would become a laughing stock to the other sections. Now was not the time to settle the score. Zhao Chong had been with Luo Kuan for a long time. In the Daluo sect, no one dared to disrespect him. After a long time, he inevitably became a little arrogant. In his heart, he also felt that he had been wronged. He had been sent to a small checkpoint to deal with a rogue. Although he was unwilling, he did not dare to object to Luo Kuan's arrangement. In the Sea of Clouds, the Daluo sect's flying artifact was hidden. This way, it was convenient for them to observe the surroundings. On the flying artifact, there were 15 people, including Zhao Chong. A leader named Lu Su looked at the arrogant Zhao Chong and asked carefully, "Elder Zhao, why does that Yu Qianzhou always make life difficult for our Daluo sect?" "Humph." Zhao Chong glared at him and snorted. "You Daluo sect disciples should remember this. Kind people get bullied, and tame horses get ridden. Our Daluo sect is ranked second among the righteous sects, so you must show the backbone of a great sect. Don't be like some people who can remain indifferent even when their own sons are killed after suffering a bit. Humph. Boosting the morale of others while lowering our own prestige is a great humiliation to the Daluo sect." Lu Su clicked his tongue. He had long heard that this elder Zhao was arrogant, but he didn't think he would dare say such things to that person. He naturally knew who Zhao Chang's son was killed, but the topic was too sensitive. He didn't dare continue. If word got out, an early core formation realm disciple like him wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. Thinking of this, Lu Su couldn't help but worry. As soon as he received the news from the sect, he was prepared to avoid Yu Qianzhou's flying artifact and hide in the clouds. No matter how much Yu Qianzhou hated the Daluo sect, he couldn't possibly search for them everywhere. Who knew that the front lines would send this guy to restrain them? From his tone, it sounded like he was here to restrain them? He was clearly pushing them into a pit of fire. Sigh. Just hide in the Daluo sect and act arrogantly. Why didn't you think about what kind of person Yu Qianzhou was? He didn't care what sect you were from. Even sect master Luo Qingtian, a mid-tribulation passing cultivator, lost an arm in a one-on-one duel. Why did you, an early tribulation passing cultivator, come looking for trouble? Lu Su turned around and exchanged a glance with the people behind him. He could see that everyone had a hint of worry on their faces, and it was clear that they all had the same concerns as him. Lu Su couldn't help but shake his head with a wry smile. He hoped that Elder Zhao didn't want to lose face in front of the disciples and deliberately said something like that. What he feared had come. In the distance, the sound of several flying artifacts piercing through the air could be heard. With a little effort, they could tell that there were 6 flying artifacts, which matched the number of flying artifacts Yu Qianzhou had brought. The expressions of the dozen or so people changed drastically. After looking at each other, they all looked at Elder Zhao. Zhao Chong snorted slightly and steered his flying artifact into the clouds to look into the distance. In the distance, 6 black dots were flying in their direction at high speed and would soon meet them. Zhao Chong directly controlled the flying Dharma artifact to rush out and tyrannically blocked the path of the 6 flying Dharma artifacts. The 6 flying artifacts had clearly noticed them as well and slowed down as they approached. The group from the Exalted sect sized up the 6 celestial artifacts in front of them. They were oddly shaped, and even under the bright sun, they exuded an eerie aura. They even had eyes at the front, and through those transparent eyes, they could vaguely see people sitting inside. The Daluo sect is here on orders from the Cultivation Alliance to interrogate suspicious cultivators. If you have a pass, hand over your pass. If you don't, open your cabin and accept the interrogation. Zhao Chong clearly wanted to show off his strength to Yu Qianzhou and the others. When he roared, even the disciples behind him felt as though their ears were about to explode. The Daluo sect disciples held their breaths and watched the other party's movements. After Zhao Chang's shout, the 3 flying artifacts in the triangular formation at the front suddenly moved. It was as if the eyes had suddenly closed. The group did not understand what was going on. Zhao Chong snorted coldly and shouted again, "The Daluo sect is here on orders from the Cultivation Alliance. How dare you?" The tone of the shout suddenly changed. The group of people were also startled by the other party's movements. They saw the 3 flying artifacts in front of them shooting over in a frenzy, directly colliding with the small flying artifacts beneath their feet. They did not even say a word to each other. "Oh my God!" The Daluo sect disciples cried out and jumped down from their flying artifacts. After they dodged the impact, they released their flying swords and steadied themselves in the air. Looking up, they saw that Zhao Chong was clearly trying to dodge with his flying artifact. However, it happened so suddenly, and the 3 monstrous things had deliberately planned for this. There was a loud bang in the air. Zhao Chong leaped into the air and flew away. The flying artifact under his feet was knocked far away, and he quickly rolled toward the dear earth to hug it. The group of disciples still had lingering fear, and a bad feeling welled up in their hearts. At first, everything was fine, but when they heard that it was the Daluo sect, they immediately became impolite. They clearly did not like the Daluo sect. "How dare you? How dare you defy the decree of the Cultivation Alliance?" Zhao Chong shouted, and a cold light flashed from his storage bag. Under his guidance, it first shot into the sky, then quickly turned around and shot toward one of the flying artifacts. Bang! There was a loud bang, and the flying sword hit its target smoothly. Zhao Chong recalled his flying sword and was slightly taken aback. Under his full strength, the other party's flying artifact was actually undamaged. Even the scratch was not very obvious, almost unnoticeable. "Oh my! What material is this flying artifact made of?" The expressions of the Daluo sect disciples below all changed. They saw that Zhao Chang's sword seemed to have poked a hornet's nest. Dozens of black shadows flashed out from the flying artifact that was hit. More than a dozen of them shot into the sky and surrounded Zhao Chong from all directions. The rest of them scattered. The disciples' vision blurred, and they found that each of them was standing in front of a masked man in black, staring at them indifferently. The words, "itinerant cultivator," on the men's chests made the disciples subconsciously shiver. They immediately remembered the news they had heard recently. Yen Bugui led a group of Tribulation stage experts to sneak attack the 100 Flowers Valley. Yu Qianchou suddenly attacked, and the 600 itinerant cultivators under him killed almost all of the Tribulation stage experts without suffering any losses. Zhao Chong looked around in the sky and saw that he was surrounded by masked men in black, and they were all at the early stage of the Tribulation stage, similar to his cultivation level. He immediately waved his hand and shouted, "How dare you! I am a disciple of Daluo sect's Honorable Luo Kuan. You itinerant cultivators dare to surround me? Are you tired of living? Who is Luo Kuan?" A strange question came from below. Zhao Chong looked down and saw a man and 2 women standing on one of the flying artifacts. The man was asking an enchanting woman a question. The enchanting woman giggled and said, "Luo Kuan is the honorable cultivator of Daluo sect in the late stage of the Tribulation stage. It is said that he is ranked 3rd in the Daluo sect. He is the leader of the Daluo sect's expedition to the East Sea." "Then I'll have to ask him why his Daluo sect keeps looking for trouble with me." The man nodded slightly. Zhao Chong shouted, "Who is down there? Come up and answer me." Even at this time, the man's tone was still so unyielding. As expected of a big sect. Where did this old bastard come from? He really doesn't know his place. After the man cursed, he waved his hand and pointed. "Cut that stubborn guy into a human stick, seal his dantian, and bring him here. Don't kill him. This is my greeting gift to the Daluo sect." Chapter 420. If you remove his limbs, you'll be called a human stick. The Daluo sect members were shocked to hear this. Seeing him call out to these wandering cultivators, they could vaguely guess who he was. "You're Yu Qianchou." Zhao Chang's eyes widened in anger. How could he hesitate when he heard the other party's words? Before the wandering cultivators could make a move, he released his stellar energy to protect himself. His sword created a huge sword shadow with all his might, and he slashed out wildly, forcing the masked wandering cultivators in front of him to retreat. It seemed that he was not afraid, or he would not have to run for his life. But with so many people here, and with his stellar energy slowing him down, where could he run? He had just run a few dozen meters when a group of flying swords attacked him, hitting his stellar energy with a bang bang. He was knocked upside down in the air. A dozen or so black shadows flashed and immediately trapped him again. The dozen or so people called back their flying swords and raised them together, creating a huge sword shadow that struck Zhao Cheng's stellar energy from all directions. With a loud bang, the protective aura shield instantly disappeared. Zhao Chong, who was inside, was also shocked until he was dizzy. His face was pale, and blood oozed from his nostrils. His eyes were dazzled, but he knew that survival was the most important thing at this time. He wanted to raise his sword to protect himself, but he found that his arms were light. When he came back to his senses, Zhao Chong let out a scream of horror. He didn't know when his arms and legs had been separated from his body. No wonder they were so light. Yu Qianqiu. Zhao Chong howled in grief, but a black shadow flashed by and struck his abdomen with a palm. His body shook, and he immediately felt his dantian locked, unable to circulate his spiritual origin. His whole body quickly withered, and he quickly fell from the sky. The people below grabbed his belt and quickly patted the roots of his severed limbs, stopping the gushing blood. Yu Qianqiu, you'll die a horrible death. Zhao Chong howled unwillingly. Not far away, Lu Su sighed slightly. He was really used to being flattered in the Daluo sect. He was so arrogant that he didn't even know who he was. He only regretted it when he suffered a loss. Hee. I'd like to see who will die a horrible death. Sharp-tongued, come on. Break his teeth and pull out his tongue. Yu Qianqiu sneered with his hands behind his back. This was the first time he had encountered such a reckless person. If he did not treat him well, he would be letting down the Grand Immortal Sect's efforts in nurturing him. Yu Qianqiu, don't you dare! As soon as Zhao Chong said that, the masked man lifted him up high and punched him in the mouth. The sound of his teeth cracking was hair-raising. The Daluo sect disciples watched as the masked man moved his hand around Zhao Cheng's mouth. Then the masked man pulled out something bright red and threw it away. Zhao Cheng's neck went limp and he fainted. The disciples trembled in fear as they looked at the masked man in front of them. Purple Dress turned her head slightly to the side, as if she couldn't accept something that was too cruel. The Allure Beauty's pupils shrank slightly. Yu Qianqiu looked coldly at the Daluo sect disciples around him and said indifferently, "You're just small fries in the Daluo sect. I shouldn't have bothered with you. If you want to blame someone, blame yourselves for being Daluo sect disciples and getting involved in the grudge between me and the Daluo sect. You can't blame others for this." He waved his hand lightly and said, "Cripple their cultivation but spare their lives." The dozen or so Daluo sect disciples immediately turned pale with fright. They had cultivated so hard. Who would be willing to be a mere mortal? Once their cultivation was crippled, it would be a fate worse than death. Now, they probably couldn't do it anymore. There was no need for any discussion. The dozen or so disciples held on to their last glimmer of hope and fled frantically. However, the difference in their cultivation was too great. In the blink of an eye, the masked man caught up to them. Cries of pain rang out in the air as their dantian was destroyed. From then on, they would no longer be able to gather true yuan to cultivate. The group of disciples who were as limp as sheep were thrown into the flying artifacts. The 6 black figures moved again and sped east. At the shore of the Eastern Sea, in the empty backyard of a large residence, a communication array was set up. 4 elders wearing the Daluo sect's uniform frowned. The one standing at the front was Luo Kuan, and the 3 behind him were also consecrators of the Daluo sect. They were called Cui Zhao Fan, Li Mengbai, and Zhu Zhao. Luo Kuan said to one of the disciples in the spirit stone array, "Still no contact?" The disciple replied with some fear, "I've already asked the disciples of the other sects nearby to help me search. They really haven't found any disciples from our sect. It's already been a day. It's impossible for Zhao Chong and the others to not contact this place for so long. Something must have happened." As Luo Kuan spoke, he turned to look at the 3 elders behind him. The 3 of them nodded slightly, clearly agreeing with him. Zhu Xianxian, who was standing to the side, bowed respectfully to the 4 elders and said, "For consecrators, in this disciple's opinion, there shouldn't be any accidents under normal circumstances. If there really is an accident, I'm afraid that Yu Qianqiu will have something to do with it. If we calculate the time we lost contact with them, it should be around the same time as Yu Qianqiu." Luo Kuan nodded slightly, then asked the other 3 consecrators, "What do you think?" "Zhu Xianxian, I want to ask you something," Li Mengbai, the youngest of the 4 consecrators, said as he looked into the sky. Consecrator, please ask. This disciple will tell you everything he knows, Zhu Xianxian said respectfully. Li Mengbai slowly retracted his gaze and stared at him, saying, You've interacted with Yu Qianchou the most, so you should know him well. If something really happened to Zhao Chong at the hands of Yu Qianchou, I want to ask you, why does Yu Qianchou keep targeting our Deluo sect? This person is narrow-minded, and he's a notorious scoundrel in the cultivation world. Ever since he became enemies with our Deluo sect, he's been harboring a grudge against us. If we don't get rid of this person and allow him to continue developing, he'll become a scourge to our sect sooner or later, Zhu Xianxian said in one breath. Li Mengbai nodded non-committally and said, I heard that the Cultivation Alliance's idea to divide up the 600 cultivators under Yu Qianchou was your idea. Ah. Zhu Xianxian suddenly realized that the consecrator's tone was a little off. He paused and said, Yes, this disciple believes that we can't let them grow any further and should disband them as soon as possible. That's why I came up with this idea. All the other sects think the same way. Li Mengbai nodded and asked again, Then why did I hear that Yu Qianchou didn't provoke our Deluo sect back in the 100 Flowers Valley, but you always went against Yu Qianchou? This disciple did not go against Yu Qianchou. I only fought for the interests of our sect. This is my duty, Zhu Xianxian said with some fear. Zhu Zhao, who was standing to the side, took a step forward and said in a deep voice, As the head of our sect's external affairs, you should fight for the interests of our sect. This is the right thing to do. Remember this in the future. His words affirmed Zhu Xianxian's contribution. Yes, this disciple will remember, Zhu Xianxian said sincerely. Zhu Zhao was his uncle. If it weren't for this uncle, he wouldn't have been able to become the external manager of the Daluo sect. Zhu Zhao's words were clearly helping him out of this predicament. Li Mengbai glanced at the uncle and nephew, then exchanged glances with the other 2 consecrators and said nothing more. Looking at the time, Yu Qianchou and the others should have arrived by now. Whether or not Yu Qianchou and Zhao Cheng's disappearance was caused by him, we can ask him. After saying that, Zhu Zhao turned to Zhu Xianxian and asked, Have there been any movements from Limitless Island recently? There hasn't been any big movement, but there are still reinforcements coming from time to time. Zhu Xianxian hesitated for a moment, then said, There has been something strange recently. Corpses are constantly floating over from Wuji Island. After the various sects have fished them up and examined them, they have all dug pits and buried them. In the past few days, there have probably been more than 10,000 corpses. The 4 of them looked at each other. Zhu Zhao frowned and said, Can you tell where they came from? Are they mortals or cultivators? They are all wearing Huaxia's clothing. Most of them are mortals, but those cultivators are the disciples of the various sects who were kidnapped in the previous battles. The main meridians of those mortals were severed. Clearly, they died from having their blood drained. As for those cultivators, they are even stranger. Holes have been dug out of their dantian, as if someone had taken away their core or nascent soul. This is really puzzling, Zhu Xianxian shook his head and said. Something like this actually happened? Those people don't even let mortals go. What are they trying to do? Luo Kuan said angrily. As they were talking, the sound of several flying artifacts piercing through the air came from afar. In the blink of an eye, 6 of them flew past the courtyard. Zhu Xianxian looked at the sky and said, It should be Yu Qianchou and the others. That's good. Zhu Zhao sneered at them and said, Let's go take a look at what this Yu Qianchou looks like, the one who made our Daluo sect lose face. We can also ask him if what happened to Zhao Chong has anything to do with him. The few Daluo sect consecrators nodded in tacit agreement and walked outside together. Clearly, they all wanted to get to know this Yu Qianchou. Zhu Xianxian, who was following behind them, sneered. Since the 4 consecrators are personally coming, let's see where this Yu Qianchou can run to now. Although the sect's defensive line was long, the main force was gathered in this Wanghai town. Due to the prominent terrain, it was suitable for observing the enemy. In addition, the mortals who lived here had been forcibly moved away, so it naturally became the first choice for the sects to stay. There was a large open space in the town. Originally, it was a place where the fishermen who fished by the sea gathered to dry and repair their nets. Now, it had become a good place for the sects to gather manpower. At this moment, many people from the sects slowly walked out. Seeing the 6 strange flying artifacts land in the sky, everyone knew that Yu Qianqiu had arrived. Aside from wanting to see Yu Qianqiu, the 600 wandering cultivators were also the focus of everyone's attention. After all, many sects had paid a large amount of spirit stones for them. If they were really worth fighting for, many sects would not give up so easily. The leading flying artifacts hatch opened, and Yu Qianqiu slowly walked out with a dark expression. Behind him were the beauty of 100 charms and purple dress. The other flying artifacts did not move, and the 600 wandering cultivators did not come down either. Something was strange. More and more people gathered around. Yu Qianqiu looked around with a dark expression and sneered. He turned around and shouted, "Throw those Daluo sect guys out." Chapter 421. The various sects glanced at each other, then turned their gazes to the Daluo sect's side, a trace of doubt in their eyes. Could there be people from the Daluo sect on these 6 flying artifacts? The Daluo sect's representatives looked as if they had expected this. The disappearance of Zhao Chong and the others was indeed related to Yu Qianqiu. As long as they were still alive, everything was fine. However, they were afraid that Yu Qianqiu would destroy the evidence after killing them and refuse to admit to it. If that happened, even if they could find out the truth, it would take a lot of effort. Zhu Xianxian sneered. If the people who came out were really Zhao Chong and the others, then today's matter would be settled. With the 4 great reverends of the Daluo sect here, they would not let Yu Qianqiu get away scot-free again. As soon as Yu Qianqiu finished speaking, 15 masked men in black flashed out from the cabin door behind him. Each of them had a person in their hands, and they threw them forward, causing them to cry out in pain. Everyone looked over and saw that these people were indeed wearing the uniform of the Daluo sect, and each of them was struggling weakly on the ground. One of them was covered in blood, and the most frightening thing was that all 4 of his limbs had been chopped off. At this moment, he was facing the Daluo sect's direction with his mouth wide open, howling in pain. From the look of grief and indignation on his face, it was clear that he had nowhere to vent his endless hatred. None of the people present were ordinary people, and their eyesight was far stronger than that of mortals. After a closer look, they were all shocked. The one who had lost all 4 limbs was actually Zhao Chong, a disciple of Reverend Luo Kuan of the Daluo sect. As for the other disciples, their cultivations had been crippled. Everyone was shocked. This Yu Qianqiu was too bold. After leaving people in such a state, he didn't even know to kill them, instead throwing them out in front of everyone. It seemed like their previous guess was correct. Yu Qianqiu must have known that the Daluo sect had come up with the idea to poach his people, and now he was here to take revenge. What a lunatic! Everyone from the Daluo sect paled. Zhu Xianxian even cried out in alarm, "Elder Zhao," and rushed over in a flash. The 15 black-clothed men did not need to be told, they all flashed in front of Yu Qianqiu, blocking Zhu Xianxian. Zhu Xianxian was well informed, so he naturally knew how powerful these masked men were. He stopped in his tracks and pointed at Yu Qianqiu, shouting, "Yu Qianqiu, how dare you treat my Daluo sect's disciple like this?" At this point, there was no need for the Daluo sect's people to call out to them. All of them quickly rushed over, and soon, over 1,000 of them had arrived. Without saying a word, the 15 masked men released flying swords from their storage pouches and held them in their hands as they faced off against the 1,000 exalted sect disciples without the slightest fear. Zhu Xianxian turned around and saw so many Daluo sect disciples backing him up. His courage was boosted, and he jabbed his finger at Zhu Xianxian again. "Yu Qianqiu, today is the day you die. All of you back off." At Yu Qianqiu's order, the 15 black-clothed men dragged the dozen or so Daluo sect disciples on the ground and quickly moved behind him. Yu Qianqiu's cold gaze swept across the Daluo sect, and he slowly took a few steps forward. Then he stepped on Zhao Chong, who was struggling and howling, so hard that he could barely move. "How dare you!" The Daluo sect's revered elders shouted in unison. Yu Qianqiu's actions were no different from slapping the Daluo sect's face in public. Zhu Xianxian's body moved. He wanted to go over and save Yu Qianqiu, but he saw Yu Qianqiu take out 2 big black sabers from his storage pouch. Zhu Xianxian jumped in fright. He forcefully stabilized himself and didn't rush over. "You want to fight?" Yu Qianqiu raised an eyebrow. The 2 sabers in his hands clashed, and the sound of metal clapping resounded through the air. It was neither wood nor metal, and no one could tell what rare material the sabers were made of. With the clapping of the sabers, the cabin doors of the flying magic artifacts all opened. Everyone's eyes widened, and more than 600 masked loose cultivators came out in an instant. Yu Qianqiu turned his head and glanced at them. It seemed that he had found the feeling of being the boss in his previous life, calling on his subordinates to fight. He had worked hard for so long, and this was the day he had been waiting for. He turned back to the Daluo sect and sneered, "I'll play with you if you want to use force, but I still want to make things clear. Besides being a trustworthy person, I'm also a reasonable person." The various sects looked at the strength of both sides in shock. The Daluo sect had almost double the number of masked loose cultivators. There were nearly 100 tribulation stage cultivators and 4 peak experts in the final stage. On the other hand, on Yu Qianqiu's side, more than 600 cultivators were all in the tribulation stage. The purple-clothed girl was also in the final stage. It was said that she had killed an expert of the same cultivation level in the 100 Flowers Valley. She could probably fight against 2 of them. The strength of both sides was completely on par. Seeing this, the various sects could not help but feel a little emotional. This guy had really grown. He had the strength to fight against the second largest sect of the Orthodox sections. Of course, this was only a portion of the Daluo sect's strength. It would be a joke if they thought that they could fight against the entire Daluo sect with just 600 people. How could a large sect that had stood in the cultivation world for thousands of years be shaken by a mere 600 tribulation stage cultivators? However, what the various sects did not know was that these 600 people were also a portion of Yu Qianqiu's strength. Utopia's army of nearly 10,000 was already preparing for battle. Once the time was ripe, Yu Qianqiu would probably attack the Daluo sect first. One was a powerful force that was out in the open, while the other was a huge army of cultivators hiding in the dark. Sooner or later, there would be a day when they would clash fiercely. Who would win and who would lose? Luo Kuan walked over slowly and pushed Zhu Xianxian behind him. After glancing at the grotesque Zhao Chong on the ground, he stared coldly at Yu Qianqiu and spat out 2 words. "Release him." His attitude was very firm, and his meaning was very clear. "I don't care if you want to fight or reason with me. Release him unconditionally first, or the consequences will be dire." The other 3 worshippers also walked over with ashen faces and stood beside Luo Kuan. When Zhu Zhao brushed past Zhu Xianxian, he also glared at him coldly. Clearly, he was blaming Zhu Zhao for weakening the prestige of the Daluo sect. Zhu Xianxian felt that he was wronged and lowered his head slightly. He thought to himself, "Don't you know the power of those 2 sabers? They have already defeated several tribulation stage cultivators. Moreover, if I charge forward, Yu Qianqiu will definitely kill me. I'm afraid that I won't be able to return even if I charge forward." Regardless of Zhu Xianxian's attitude, when the 4 Daluo sect experts in the late tribulation stage appeared, their imposing manner immediately silenced the crowd. The atmosphere was very heavy. No one from the various sects came out to mediate. Yu Qianqiu had gone too far, and even the supporting Immortal Island was too embarrassed to step in. This had completely damaged the Daluo sect's reputation, and no one would be able to stop him. Seeing the 4 people appear, Yu Qianqiu narrowed his eyes slightly. He stabbed his sabers into the ground and cupped his fists. "May I know who the 4 of you are from the Daluo sect? Release him." Luo Kuan spat out these 2 words in reply. His tone sounded like it was the final warning. The allure beauty behind Yu Qianqiu transmitted her voice. "This person is Zhao Chang's master, Luo Kuan, a worshipper of the Daluo sect. The other 3 are also worshippers of the Daluo sect. They are all experts in the late tribulation stage." Yu Qianqiu nodded slightly and said expressionlessly, "So it's the 4 worshippers of the Daluo sect. I apologize for my lack of manners." The 4 of them immediately knew that someone had transmitted a message to Yu Qianqiu. Their gazes all fell on the 100 Charms beauty. Zhu Zhao shouted, "100 Charms beauty, your demon illusion palace has already been erased from the cultivation world. Why don't you behave yourself? Are you going to get involved in this matter?" The allure beauty smiled non-committally and immediately maintained her silence. Not speaking at this time meant that she was reserving some leeway. Perhaps it would be more advantageous for Yu Qianqiu to act when the opportunity arose. "Zi." Yu Qianchou called out. Ze also understood the seriousness of the situation. She immediately teleported to his side and used her actions to show that she was in the late tribulation stage. The four people's pupils shrank slightly as they stared at her. Facing someone who could kill an expert in the late tribulation stage, no one dared to underestimate her. It seems that the four seniors of the Daluo sect want to teach us a lesson. I'll leave the four seniors to you. You just need to hold them off for a while and I'll deal with the others. At that time, I'll lend you a hand. No problem, right? Yu Qianchou said indifferently. Yes. Ze nodded heavily. She glanced at the four people and took out the purplish-black bamboo. There was an uncontrollable excitement on her face. The various sects sucked in a breath of cold air. It seemed that this madman was going to clash head-on with the Daluo sect. At a time like this, when they were facing off against a foreign enemy, such a large-scale battle would be a loss for the Chinese cultivation world regardless of who won. Quan Deming of Fuxian Island finally couldn't help but shout. Everyone, think of the big picture. If there's anything, we can talk it over. Since it has come to this, there's nothing to talk about. Zhu Zhao waved his hand at Quan Deming and shouted, Yu Qianchou die! His figure flashed and he struck out with his palm. A huge palm shadow came crashing down. Ze, who was standing at the side, rushed forward and shouted, Fight! The purple bamboo in her hand also turned into a huge shadow. With a bang, the shadow of the palm shadow was destroyed. A strong airflow spread out. Damn it! It's that bullshit Tida Luo mountain splitting palm again. Yu Qianchou cursed in his heart. He thought that by showing off his strength, the other party would have some misgivings. Then, he would be able to talk his way out of this. Who knew that the other party wouldn't just let this matter rest and would rather make it bigger? Since that's the case, what else is there to say? I'm not afraid. Without another word, Yu Qianchou dragged his saber with both hands and directly split Zhao Chong, who was under his feet, into two. Then, he pointed his saber forward and shouted, Kill! With Yu Qianchou as an example, the dozen disciples of the Daluo sect were instantly killed on the spot. More than 600 masked men quickly divided into small combat teams and neatly charged into the enemy's group. Luo Kuan and the other two were also shocked. They didn't expect Zhu Zhao to attack just like that. He didn't even greet the three of them. But since the enemy had already launched a large-scale attack, they naturally had to protect their own side first. The three of them quickly exchanged glances and immediately shot up into the sky, rushing into the group of 600 masked loose cultivators. 6 palms flashed and flashed as fast as shadows. Like a gust of wind, the three of them consecutively killed more than 10 people. The dozen screams made Yu Qianchou's heart skip a beat. He didn't think much of Ze and the late-stage tribulation passing expert, but he didn't expect the late-stage tribulation passing expert to be so terrifying. Killing early-stage tribulation passing experts was as easy as taking something out of one's pocket. Watching the dozen members fall from the sky and die, he immediately shouted, Don't bother with the three of them. The others are your targets. As soon as these words came out, a few more people fell from the sky. But after hearing this warning, the special forces immediately stopped risking their lives to fight the three. Instead, they pounced into the group of Daluo sect disciples and started a frenzied massacre. Screams rang out everywhere as the Daluo sect disciples fiercely counterattacked. However, as soon as the battle started, the Daluo sect disciples realized that their side had more than 1,000 people, but they didn't seem to have more than 600 people on their side. It seemed as if they were surrounded by masked men in black, and they were being attacked from all directions. Just as they tried to deal with them, a flying sword suddenly pierced through their chest, and they fell to the ground with a look of disbelief on their faces. And when they attacked, the enemy seemed to have people helping them everywhere, so they didn't have to worry about their rear being exposed. As soon as they attacked, someone would immediately deflect their flying sword, and then they would be attacked for no reason. Up in the sky, Luo Kuan and the other two glanced at the scene below and immediately felt their hearts skip a beat. Although the masked men in black could not withstand a single blow from them, they were like hungry wolves charging into a flock of sheep when they charged into the Daluo sect disciples. The Daluo sect disciples had no way of fighting back against the flawless teamwork of the other party. The masked man in black constantly changed the most advantageous formation. His attacks and defenses were balanced as he slaughtered the Daluo sect disciples wantonly, killing them one by one. In an instant, 200 to 300 of the nearly 1,000 Luo sect disciples fell, and the rest fell into a state of panic and fear. Faced with such a sharp combination of attacks, they were unable to organize an effective attack, and in an instant, blood and flesh flew everywhere. The various sects were dumbfounded, and they looked at each other. They didn't expect the 600 people under Yu Qianzhou to be so powerful. Why did it seem as if every one of them had been through hundreds of battles? In this exchange, the Da Luo sect suffered great losses. Both sides of the massacre were from the Cultivation Alliance. The various sects were worried, but they couldn't help either side. Luo Kuan and the other two were stunned for a moment, and another 200 Da Luo sect disciples fell. In just a short period of time, almost half of the disciples had lost their lives. How could this be? The three's expressions changed, and without hesitation, they took out their flying swords from their storage bags. Luo Kuan shouted, "You two deal with those loose cultivators, I'll eliminate them." Cui Zhaofan and Li Mengbai quickly flashed to the sky above the battlefield. The flying swords hovering in the air were as fast as lightning, rising and falling towards the masked men in black below. Luo Kuan, on the other hand, glared at Yu Qianzhou. The latter was slightly shocked and thought to himself, so the so-called elimination was referring to me. Ze. Finish the battle quickly. Kill the opponent and help our brothers get rid of the other two, shouted Yu Qianzhou as he glanced at the Special Forces offensive. With the addition of 2 experts in the final phase of the Tribulation passing stage, not only did the Special Forces suffer more casualties, but their attacking formation was also in chaos. If this continued, the entire team would be wiped out. Zhu Zhao was already in a difficult situation, and Yu Qianzhou's shout was simply asking for his life. Ze immediately unleashed the great art of teleportation to the extreme. The purple bamboo she controlled flickered in and out of sight, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. No matter how hard Zhu Zhao tried, he couldn't get rid of the opponent. It was as if he was possessed by a ghost, and he could only barely defend himself. He felt like his life was hanging by a thread. He anxiously shouted, "Luo Kuan, quickly come and help me." Luo Kuan was about to kill Yu Qianzhou, but when he heard Ziyi's shout, he was immediately shocked. To the sect, losing 1 expert in the final phase of the Tribulation passing stage was a great loss. How could they not save him? He immediately teleported over and fought Ze with Zhu Zhao's dual swords. "Ze! Hold on!" Yu Qianzhou roared. He turned his head and stared at the 2 experts in the final phase of the Tribulation passing stage, who were trying to kill the members of the Special Forces. A ruthless and cruel aura appeared on his face. He threw the broadswords in his hands into his storage bag, and with a flick of his sleeves, black shadows started to appear. The green flying swords that he used to use were now abandoned, and were replaced by black flying swords. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.